Kia hiwara, tihei mauri ora. Ko kahurana ki te maunga, ko tuki tuki te awa. Ko paukawa te waiu, ko kahurana ki te marae, ko te rangakoianake, te hapu, ko te whatu āpiti, te tangata. Ko Taki Timu, te waka, ko Ngāti Kahunguni te iwi, ko Chrissy Cowan, tōku ingoa. Greetings and welcome everyone to today's webinar that we're talking for Kōrero for Change about transport. My name is Chrissy Cowan and I hail from the beautiful East Coast in Hastings, Hawke's Bay, Aotearoa. I am an Access Matters Aotearoa board member and I will be your host today. Welcome to Kōrero for Change webinar series that Access Matters Aotearoa Trust brought to you with funding from J.R. Mackenzie Trust and support from Waikaha Ministry of Disabled People. The theme of today's webinar is on transport. We invite thought leaders, academia, experts and disabled people within the transport sector to have courageous conversations about ableism and their role in creating a more inclusive society. Before we dive into our discussions, we have a few housekeeping reminders. Firstly, after each panel, the audience can participate via the Q&A pop-up box by submitting questions. If you need to speak in sign to pose your questions, select the raise your hand option and we will enable your audio and video. We have two options for captioning. One is available on the webinar screen and you can enable this by clicking on the captions at the bottom of your screen. The second option is via a live transcript link. If you can raise your hands in chat, a moderator will place a link into the chat to do so. The webinar will be recorded and shared with participants. By remaining in the webinar, you consent to being recorded. One other housekeeping reminder I have just around two things. One of my tasks today will be to ensure we keep to our program schedule. So I do apologize in advance to our speakers, mediators and panelists should I need to intervene and just prompt and remind us all of our schedule. Also, lastly, a gentle reminder to everyone presenting and our panelists that we have our NZSL interpreters signing your kōrero. To help them, please speak clearly and at a pace that enables them to interpret what we're saying to our audience.
Okay, you right? Oh, I like you.
I realize I probably need to be.
So also take this opportunity, as you would have seen, I started off a bit quickly this morning myself, so my apologies to the interpreters. Okay, I'd now like to have the honour of opening this hui with a karakia timatanga. I noi ka tātou whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai. E hi ake ana te ātāhukura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu, tihei mauri ora. Can the winds from the west, come the winds from the west, come the winds from the south. Let this breeze blow over the land, let the breeze blow over the ocean. Let the red-tipped dawn come with a sharpened ear, a touch of frost, a promise of a glorious day. Behold, there is life. I now have the honour of introducing our first speaker, Jonathan Mosen, MNZM disability advocate and host of Living Blindfully podcast. Jonathan will set the scene for our kōrero today, educating us all on ableism and giving examples of this in the transport setting. Ngā mihi, over to you, Jonathan.
Ngā mihi, Chrissy, mōrena, everybody. and thank you for the opportunity to be a part of this corridor today. My remarks are influenced by my own lived experience as someone who is totally blind and who also wears hearing aids. And I've been asked to talk about ableism in the context of public transport. Ableism is discrimination, prejudice, or bias against disabled people based on the belief that non-disabled people are superior. New Zealand has a huge problem in that there are few people in change-making roles. This is relevant because it means that whenever we seek advancements in public transport or any other area for that matter, we are required to convince non-disabled people of our worth. Expectations of the kind of contribution disabled people are capable of making in society are so low that can influence the allocation or lack of allocation of resources. We have made some tangible, real progress in public transport over time in terms of some positive infrastructural change, and we should celebrate and savor the victories when they come. But there is still plenty to do. I still hear horror stories here in Wellington, where I'm from, about blind people who are publicly challenged and publicly humiliated by bus drivers who don't think someone is blind enough to be entitled to use a concession, so they must be faking it. We've all heard about the occasional highly distressing service animal refusals on buses. And in May of this year, the Secretary of the Tramways Union here in Wellington snuck into the Kilbirnie bus depot on a Sunday night and put nearly 2,000 leaflets on bus seats because he didn't like the volume of the audible announcements so many people worked so hard for to get introduced. I doubt that he even gave a moment's thought to the fact that when blind passengers came across those leaflets on the Monday morning, when they put their butt on the seat, they would have no idea what it was because the leaflet was inaccessible, just like he apparently wanted his buses to be. Now, I wrote to the Tramways Union in protest at this ableist action and rhetoric, and suggesting that the disability community was owed an apology. I never even received a reply. But Kevin O'Sullivan's comment in a Morning Report interview was illustrative. He said, and I quote, "Blind people have been navigating their way around Wellington very successfully without all this stuff." And that right there is the definition of ableism. Someone who thinks they know better than those of us who live our lives as disabled people every day. The attitude is, we shouldn't expect better. We shouldn't demand full inclusion. We should just keep on muddling through because that's what we've always done. In the time I have left, I'd like to make one final point about the constrained choices disabled people have when it comes to services like taxis and rideshare. This is how I now do most of my travel, partly because I am fortunate enough to be able to afford it, but also for disability reasons. I have a degenerative hearing impairment. Navigating traffic to get to the bus stop and then getting off the bus and navigating traffic to get to my destination is increasingly challenging. Working with hearing aids means that my sense of direction and awareness of my surroundings isn't as good as they once were. And I prefer to use Uber for good accessibility reasons. The app is by and large very accessible with my screen reader. I know exactly where my vehicle is, when it's turning up, and who's driving it. I can have a dialogue with the driver via text or phone describing where I am and asking them to look out for me and bring me to their vehicle. I can keep a record of the number plate, which is relevant if I'm traveling with my wife, who is a guide dog handler. Yep, we've certainly had guide dog refusals with Uber, but we've had just as many with taxis. If we try and get into a taxi from a taxi rank and we're refused because of Bonnie's dog, we have no record of the driver's name or license plate, and you can be sure The driver's going to refuse to give it to us. If I've requested an Uber, though, I have all that info and I can follow up. And believe me, I always follow up. Yet I can't have a subsidy, despite having made a choice for multiple legitimate accessibility reasons. We're also constrained in the taxi companies that we can use as well. Not all of them accept total mobility. In short, we just want the same subsidy for all rideshare choices and taxi choices, which is similar to what the rest of society has. There are no constraints on non-disabled people about the choices they can make when it comes to taxi or Uber. The total mobility scheme is not fit for purpose in today's more competitive market. With the will and the determination, it is fixable, and we should be entitled to the same freedom of choice as everyone else. I'm not sure that I will be able to be here for all of the corridor today due to work commitments, but I certainly look forward to sitting in for as long as I can, and I very much look forward to the discussion. So thank you for the opportunity to kick this off, and I hope that the rest of the discussion is helpful.
Jonathan, ngā mihi ki a koe i te matua for sharing your wisdom with us today. It's now my pleasure to welcome our next speaker, no mai haere mai, Juliet Schultz, who is joining us from America. Juliet is a transportation systems engineer for accessibility aroha mai on the US Access Board. Juliet will share examples of American with Disabilities Act accessibility guidelines on transport. Welcome, Juliet.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so I'll talk to you about accessible transportation and how it's addressed here in the United States. First, I work for the US Access Board. It's an independent federal agency, a very small agency with under 30 staff and a budget of around $9 million. We have a governing body of 13 public members that are appointed by the president to 4-year terms. The majority of those public members must have a disability. We also have 12 representatives from different federal departments. The role of the US Access Board is to promote equality for people with disabilities. The way we do that is we establish accessible design guidelines and standards. We provide technical assistance and training so that engineers and architects can understand how to design things so that they are accessible. We also have a limited enforcement authority in terms of federal facilities and more specifically post offices. So post offices are federal facilities, and if someone has an issue with the post office, they can bring that complaint to us and we can help them get it resolved. In terms of transportation, there's different areas that the US Access Board has been involved. And what I like to talk about is the entire transportation system, because you can't have accessible vehicles, for example, accessible buses, but if your sidewalk network is not accessible, one cannot get to the bus. So we really want to look at the entire system and all the pieces that make it an accessible transportation system. To that end, we have the ADA accessibility guidelines for transportation vehicles, the passenger vessels accessibility guidelines, the public right-of-way accessibility guidelines. We issued guidance for accessible EV charging stations. And with autonomous vehicles becoming a new mode of transportation, the Access Board is engaged in that conversation. Because what we realize is the best way to make things accessible is at the design and concept phase, not after they're built and then we're trying to modify, but everything needs to be considered in terms of accessibility at the front end. So I'll talk a little bit about the different transportation areas that the Access Board deals with, starting with ADAG for transportation vehicles. That's the Americans with Disabilities Act accessibility guidelines for transportation vehicles. In that, we address, and I've pictured some of them here on the screen, we address buses, so public transportation buses. We address all modes of rail, high-speed rail, commuter rail, intercity rail. We address buses, rail, basically all transportation vehicles. We also address, for example, trams that you might find at an airport that get you from one terminal to another. We address trains that you might find at an amusement park that maybe take you from one point of the amusement park to the other. And basically the things we're looking at, how does one board and alight? What mechanisms are they using in terms of lifts, ramps, and bridge plates? How accessible are they? What's the internal circulation within the vehicle? If they're fare vending machines, are they within reach range? Is there a clear space to get to that vending machine? We'll look at wheelchair spaces, wheelchair securement systems, that's specifically for buses, priority seating. We make sure that that is offered on the vehicles. Public announcement systems, which was just mentioned. So with public announcement system, we want to make sure there's a visual component, but there's also an audible component. For the trains that are intercity, where you have sleeping rooms and restrooms and dining cars, we'll look at accessibility of all those areas of the vehicle as well. When it comes to passenger vessels, we also look at basically the same thing, because we're looking for people with disabilities to have the exact same experience as someone who doesn't have a disability. And part of that is making sure that they have an inclusive area whereby they can independently navigate a lot of these areas. So for passenger vessels, we're looking at the entry and departure points, right? Before you even get onto that vessel, how you're getting onto that vessel. We want to look at all those pieces to make sure they're accessible. On board the vessel, we want to make sure that they're accessible routes and one can get around. The different rooms and spaces. If there's entertainment on the vessel, people with disabilities need to be able to access that entertainment as well. The passenger guest rooms, accessible means of escape, right? So for safety reasons, in the same manner that people without disabilities, there's a plan to get them through the escape route, that needs to also address people with disabilities. Restaurants and cafeterias. So all the pieces of a passenger vessel we'll look at. With the passenger vessels accessibility guidelines, those are still in progress in that they're not yet enforceable under the ADA. However, we develop these so that people who manufacture vessels can have something to look at in terms of making sure that vessels are accessible to people with disabilities. I talked about an entire system, right? You can't have an accessible bus if you don't have an accessible bus stop, for example, or a sidewalk that gets you to the bus stop. So for that, we have the public right-of-way accessibility guidelines. And this deals with everything from making sure the sidewalk and pedestrian access route is accessible, so that we're looking at ramps and slopes and cross slopes. Curb ramps are provided, curb cuts, pedestrian signal heads. So we want to make sure that pedestrian signal heads, there's both a visual, which they generally have a visual telling you to walk, or there's a countdown, but we also need to have an audible component to that, to give you the same information that someone who isn't blind or someone who isn't hard of hearing, the same information that they have access to for everyone.
Julia,
We also,
apologies.
yes.
Juliana here from the Zoom Master. Would you mind just slowing your pace a little bit to make it easier?
Yes.
For New Zealand Sign Language interpreter.
Absolutely. Sorry
Thank
about
you.
that.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. So public right-of-way, the other things we deal with is, and I've pictured some of them here on the slide, pedestrian push buttons. So with the push button, we need to make sure it's within reach range so that someone who's in a wheelchair can reach the button and get the pedestrian signal activated. We also want to make sure that that push button has a vibrotactile function so that someone who is blind can place their hand on the push button, and then when it vibrates, that notifies them that the pedestrian walk phase is on. We'll look at parking. We want to make sure that there's accessible parking in the public right-of-way. So if a city is providing parking spaces on the streets, some of those parking spaces need to be accessible. We also touch on furniture. And so we're not requiring that you put furniture in the public right-of-way, but when you provide it, it needs to be accessible. What that looks like is, for example, in the slide, I have pictured a bench that's along the sidewalk. We want to make sure you have a clear space. That way, someone who's using a wheelchair can pull up next to the bench and sit next to their companion. And also the bench needs to be on an accessible route so someone can actually get to that bench. We'll look at transit stops and transit shelters. If you have a bus stop with a shelter, we want to make sure you're providing a clear space so someone in a wheelchair can also pull up under the shelter of the transit space. Next, we have accessible EV charging stations. Again, this is one of the newer areas. And so we recently, I believe it was 2 years ago, that our government issued a lot of funding to support EV charging station construction nationwide. Well, since all that money is being expended, we wanted to make sure that some of those EV chargers are accessible. To that end, we looked at the mobility features to make sure that they're accessible. And so on one of the slide I've pictured a bigger accessible EV charging space, because the vehicle inlet where you charge it could be at the front of the vehicle, back of the vehicle, side of the vehicle. And so we want to make sure there's plenty of room for someone to exit, deploy their mobility device, and get around to the EV charger and bring the cable back to their car. So the size of the EV charging space matters. We're looking at the charger itself, again, looking at the reach ranges. And here I have pictured someone in a wheelchair at a charger, and we want to make sure any component that they're interacting with is within reach range. We want to make sure that there's communication features. So for some people, maybe they're colorblind. And so if you have an EV charger that indicates that the charging is complete with color, so maybe the charger lights up, we want to have an audible function for that too. We also talk about where the accessible EV charging space needs to be located on a site. And we want to make clear that you need to provide accessible parking spaces separate from accessible EV charging spaces, because everyone is not going to have an electric vehicle. So we want to make sure we're providing both options and providing an accessible route from the EV charging space or the accessible parking space to the building entrance. The last thing we've looked at is autonomous vehicles. And again, this is a fast developing area. And what we want to make sure is manufacturers are looking at accessibility from the beginning. We know they always consider safety. And so accessibility needs to be considered at the same time that you're looking at safety and all the other features of that autonomous vehicles. So about three or 4 years ago, we held a forum. And in that forum, we invited researchers to talk about what an accessible autonomous vehicle would look like. What would it look like for passengers with mobility disabilities? What would it look like for passengers with sensory or cognitive disabilities? And while we haven't developed any standards for autonomous vehicles, we are part of the conversation, and we want to stay part of that conversation. That way we make sure the accessibility parts are addressed at the beginning. Because one of the things that, just like the speaker before me mentioned, is, finding an accessible vehicle, whether it's an Uber or a taxi. Well, if we're moving in the direction of autonomous vehicle, let's make sure from the beginning that the autonomous vehicles are accessible, so that it's not just some of them, and so it doesn't give equal access for people with disabilities. So that wraps up basically what we cover at the Access Board in terms of transportation. Again, we look at the entire system, all modes of transportation, and making sure that they're truly accessible so people with disabilities can have independent means of getting to work, getting to healthcare facilities, and just interacting within their towns and communities in the same way everyone else has the opportunity to do so. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Juliet, for your insightful sharing of your organization that you work for your board. Very quickly, I'm not sure if we'll now look if people have any Q&A questions at this time. I see one here for you. What do you think other countries can learn from the United States in terms of accessibility legislation, specifically regarding transport?
I think the biggest part is whatever regulation, legislation is taking place, people with disabilities have to be involved, right? So the whole idea of don't make decisions for us without us,
Mm.
because no one understands the needs better than the people who actually have the lived experience. So that's the first part. The second part is every part of government should be engaged. So the education system, how do we make sure that there's accessibility there? The tourism sector, how do we make sure there's accessibility there? Every single sector of government should have some level of engagement with these regulations.
Okay. Thank you so much. Given our time span, I know that people would love to talk further with you, Juliet, but as you can appreciate these webinars, we need to keep it moving. So again, ngā mihi ki a koe e hine for making the time to join us here in Aotearoa and talk about this important kaupapa of transport. Ngā mihi to you and
Thank
many
you.
thanks.
Kia ora, Chrissy, Juliana here from the background. I think we still have time for a couple of questions.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. I actually have one, Juliet. I'm not sure if I'm looking at the screen, if Juliana and them can let me know if there's other questions coming. But we've talked about the role of your board in that. How, and I know within the American legislation, there are ways of enforcing what you guys are developing. So that the thing that balancing of how, if you find something is not right, how do you ensure change happens? How do you enforce what your board is doing?
Yeah, so there's different levels of enforcement. There's enforcement at the federal level with our Department of Justice and Department of Transportation, but there's also enforcement at the state level. So the states get funding from the federal government, for example, for roadway construction and sidewalks. And part of that is they need to make sure that the facilities that they're constructing with this funding are accessible. So, and then there's even at the local level. So there's different layers of compliance enforcement. And usually if someone calls from their small town, for example, saying, my local library is not accessible, for example, what we usually say, start local, start with having a conversation with the library, and then you kind of elevate from there, because you don't want to jump straight to the federal government when something could be resolved at the local level.
Ka pai. Thank you. I have one more question here for you. Will the Disability Transportation Accessibility Board persist regardless of whatever happens after the presidential elections in 2024? And can such gains you already have made be future-proofed?
Yes, so the U.S. Access Board was established based on the Americans with Disabilities Act. So that is law. That has been law for decades. And I don't see that law getting repealed. Fortunately, we have people in government at the federal level who are vested in ensuring that accessibility is indeed something that we practice here in the U.S. And so it doesn't, since the U.S. Access Board has been established, there hasn't been any sort of attempt to either get rid of our agency or the work that we do. Now, different administrations may have different focus groups. So for example, the Biden administration provided all that funding for EV charging stations. So we decided to develop guidelines for accessible EV charging stations. So while the focus may shift, the idea of accessible design and inclusive design does not go away.
Thank you again. Yeah, again, looking at it and imagining what would be possible for Aotearoa New Zealand from how your board has developed and grown and contributed to the kaupapa. If we also had that robust accessibility standards, for our transportation sector, the mind boggles as to what we could achieve in this country. So again, thank you very much, Juliet, for joining our webinar this morning. I'll now move on to our next speaker, and that is the Honourable Julie Ann Genter, Transport Spokesperson for the New Zealand Green Party and member of the Select Committee for Transport and Infrastructure. We also invited the Honourable Simon Brown, Minister of Transport, Simon Brown, and Honourable Matt Ducey, Associate Minister of Transport. Unfortunately, they both declined due to their clashes in calendars. Ngā mihi ki a koe, Julie, no mai, haere mai.
Kia ora, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa, ngā mihi nui ki a koutou. I first want to start by checking that everyone can hear me. It's good, it's coming through. And thanking all of you who have organized this really important forum for a place for this korero to happen, and the previous speakers who I found really fantastic to listen to. Just a little bit about my background. I actually was a transportation and urban planner before I went into politics for the Green Party. And on behalf of the Green Party, I would say our goal is to have a world where we can all live in harmony with the environment and with each other, and that every human life has value. And it's really important that we work together. We are able to work together to support people to live their best lives. I've been an MP for the Greens for, this is my 5th term. And when I was previously Minister for Women and Associate Minister of Health, I had the privilege of working a bit with the Enabling Good Lives project. And I had a lot of connections with the disability community at that time, or people who are, really rely on and deserve better government services that actually meet their needs. But throughout my role, both as a transport planner and as a politician advocating for an accessible and inclusive, affordable and sustainable transport system, and also working in that role, I'd say, unfortunately, in New Zealand, the many decades now of neoliberalism is one of the biggest barriers to getting government to actually address the problem. When I first started, there was something that was working a little bit better, which was that the regional land transport committees were required to have people with different lived experiences and people who were experts on inclusive design at that regional land transport committee level. It's not as good as what Juliet has described with the Access Board in the United States. But at least there was that recognition that there was a role for lived experience and expertise to try and ensure that at the level at which people are making decisions, funding decisions and design decisions, prioritization decisions, that that their knowledge wasn't missed out. However, the big piece of the puzzle that's missing is really the understanding that it is worth funding full inclusive access, whether that's to buildings, to our transport system. And our urban planning rules historically have actually made it very, very difficult for people, because a combination of urban planning rules and traffic engineering has really just looked at cars as the biggest priority. And for those people whose disability means they don't have access to a car, they can't drive, as well as people who might not be able to access a car due to age or to income, it has created an environment that's very difficult for people to navigate unless they have this huge vehicle that they're, which is very expensive. And there's so many opportunities to do things better. And I really believe there are a lot of win-win opportunities that mean that when we design our transport system and our urban planning rules, we design our cities and towns and buildings to be fully accessible and inclusive. That works better for all of us. Our whole society will benefit from those changes. So what I see as what's needed is, firstly, in New Zealand, as long as we're having these funding constraints pitting people against each other, we aren't able to embrace some of those solutions, because within the ministry, whether that's, in health or treasury or transport, they're like, oh, we can't think about this. It's pretty clear that the goal of enabling good lives was really good, but I was always concerned there wouldn't be adequate funding to actually enable the support that people need. Previous speaker spoke about total mobility scheme and how that, there are changes that can be made that don't just require more funding, it's just more flexibility. But I do think that more funding is also needed for public transport, for accessible public transport, and in our street design to design for all users and not just cars and trucks. So I have great hope, but as someone who is relatively able-bodied, I'm very aware of my privilege, and I think the most important thing I can do and the Green Party can do is make sure that we lift the voices of those who, experience the world differently, and make sure that we're prioritizing their voices and their knowledge in any system that we set up to deliver the outcomes and deliver the projects, deliver the funding that's needed. And I think we can learn a lot from things like the Access Board.
Okay. Kia ora, Julianne, thank you so much for your contribution. And I just want to take this opportunity of acknowledging your contribution and that of the Greens Party, who have been staunch supporters of the kaupapa of accessibility in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and around trying to influence change around accessibility legislation and structure. So ngā me ki a koe to you e hine. Now we move into the part of introducing our panels, and please let's welcome first the doer panels, the doers. I think it's kore e kupua doers. Mediating this corridor is Pete Williams. Pete is a renowned disability advocate with decades of experience in the sector. His tireless work has focused on improving accessibility, health care, education and employment for individuals with disabilities. Known for his leadership and dedication, Pete is committed to creating a more inclusive society for all. Over to you, Pete.
Pete, you muted.
Thank you for that, and apologies for the muting mishap. We've got a small change in our program. Warren Crick will be on the Deciders panel. So I've now got the honor of introducing our three panelists. Teresa Burnett, who's the General Manager, Transport and Safety and Accessibility Lead at Auckland Transport. She's been instrumental in bringing innovative accessibility concepts to Auckland Transport, such as during New Zealand Sign Language Week, the introduction at Waitemata Station, formerly Britomart Station, New Zealand Sign Language on the screens. So welcome, Teresa, and we now have David Boyd, who's the Customer Experience Manager and Accessibility Action Plan Lead at Metlink. He initially started off his career as a creative director and is now bringing his creativity into creating innovative solutions for the customer. And finally, Rob Giller, the Advocacy and Business Development Manager for Bus and Coach Association. Rob is an Army engineer by background who has held policy, operational management, and program management roles in Treasury, Education, and at the Callaghan Innovation and in the justice sector. So welcome to the three panelists. Now, I was always brought up to let ladies go first, so let's start with Teresa. Teresa, what is the role of the transport sector in the process of inclusion and belonging of people with disabilities?
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for that, Pete. I'm Teresa, as Pete says. My role is the General Manager for Transport Safety. The transport system is fundamental to how everybody lives their lives. It has a profound impact on where we can go and how long it takes us to get there. And it becomes the difference between whether we can attend our place of education or employment or not. And not to mention, leisure activities and connecting to our social networks. As soon as we leave the house, we are impacted by the transport network. But I'm not saying anything that everybody on the call doesn't already know in that respect. Do you want me to carry on, or?
We can move on to David Boyd.
Yeah, thanks. Pete. Look, I think it's two things really. I mean, there's obviously the social contract aspect of that, which is providing public transport to vulnerable communities. But actually, additional to that really is actually the consideration of just providing equal access for what the people that we might more call customers at Metlink. So there's no reason why anyone of any level of ability shouldn't be able to access public transport to get to work, socialise, education. So so really treating people equitably is just part of treating all our customers equitably.
And Rob, same question for you.
Well, I wouldn't have thought I would have said it when I woke up this morning, but I 100% agree with exactly what Julianne Genter said on this. I think it's worth having a brief definitional conversation of what we mean, because we've talked about the transport system, the public transport system. Public transport defined in the Land Transport Management Act. We talk about a lot of the services that David and Teresa contract for in terms of buses, trains and ferries. We've also got the Ministry of Education contracting for services for school children. And actually within that public transport definition, although they're not subsidised, there are other services like the intercity services that provide connections between regions. And then in the wider transport system, when I woke up this morning, I walked about 3 meters to my home office for the day. But if I'm going into town, I've got a 10.6 kilometre trip into Wellington, and I can walk, I can take a scooter, I can cycle either on an e-bike or a pedal bike, I can take a bus, I can take a train, I can take an Uber, I can take a taxi, I can take a shuttle van, I can self-drive in my car, and I can take a rideshare option like an Uber. Well, actually, sorry, a rideshare option like sharing with my next door neighbour. So there's a whole lot of choice for me, but I'm quite privileged that I have all those choices. A, because of where I live in Wellington, and B, because of my financial position that enables me to make a number of those choices. And I think what we're talking about is maximising your transport choices to the widest range of New Zealanders. And we should realise that disability, whether temporary or permanent, starts to narrow down those choices. Financial ability narrows down those choices, or ability to pay, and age can actually have a significant impediment on those choices, both at the young and the outer end of our life spectrum. So probably more than enough to start with, but I think understanding the roles of the different party and who can influence that change is really important.
Thank you all. Now we've got one other question here. What is one specific action you can take in your role within the transport sector to immediately enhance the accessibility inclusion for people with disabilities?
So,
Teresa?
I firmly believe that safety and accessibility go hand in hand. As Julianne mentioned, a lot of our roads and cities have been planned around car users, and where we come into problems is when car users conflict with other kind of modes. So, for example, in my world, we've got many cars who want to get along arterial, but we need to provide a safe place for people to cross the road. And so the transport system is very, very complex. And if one part of that system doesn't quite work, it falls down for people. So another example is we may have an amazing bus service, but if the information we provide is hard to find or not accessible, then passengers can't find it and can't use that service. So go back to safety. For me, it's about providing the ability for a safe network for all users and thinking about the network in that much broader context. Vision Zero is a big thing in our world, and that is the vision of having no one killed or seriously injured on our roads. But the fundamental shift in Vision Zero thinking was moving from blaming drivers to the onus being on those who designed the network to take responsibility and to design a forgiving network that meant if you made a mistake, it didn't cost you your life. And I think the same kind of thinking, big shift thinking, needs to happen in this space too. understanding the network, the transport network is for absolutely everybody to use and access, and all modes. And I think that push towards that big shift is probably one of the things that we can really champion, definitely within my role.
Thank you. And David?
Yeah, look, I think for us, the big thing is, and it sounds a bit boring, but I think it's fundamental, is embedding accessibility into our planning frameworks and local government. So that's why we've had established an accessibility charter, which sort of set the groundwork through our councillors, that there was a political commitment there, and then an action plan as part of that. And big part of the action plans, working with the community, co-designing, what the priorities are, but the really important bit there then is embedding that in the long-term planning process, which is where we go to government and ask for money. And if you don't get the money, it's really hard to enable a lot of fundamental change. So one example in the Wellington Regional Network is we have a bunch of railway stations that were built in the 1940s, when obviously standards for accessibility, barely existed. Now we need tens of millions of dollars to change those stations, and the only way we're going to get that is through the planning system, and working with the disability community to advocate for that. So very much working in partnership. So there's that political advocacy, but there's also embedding it in the frameworks.
Thank you. And Rob?
And that's a good transit to me, because we're an industry association. So advocacy is at the heart of what we do. And I think there's a couple of things. I've already taken away from Jonathan's korero this morning that there's perhaps some more advice that can go back to our members around driver training and the likes. I was a bit disappointed about a couple of the examples that were provided this morning. In fact, just so people know that increasingly drivers aren't being asked to push passengers on fares. It has also been a factor in violence towards drivers that we're seeing growing in the system at the moment. So I was a bit disappointed on that challenge around concession cards, but that's something we can take back. At a broader sense, again, going to Julianne Genta's point, advocacy around more public transport availability and funding, because everything can be tweaked so that you do it better, but there does need to be more money in the system. If you look at every regional public transport plan, it talks about mode shift, it talks about greater provision of public transport. The reality is we're not seeing it on the ground. And I believe public transport done well, with the infrastructural pieces that Teresa was talking about, the configuration of the vehicles and the likes, becomes a great equalizer in our society. That competition with cars, taking out a few small islands, New Zealand has the highest vehicle ownership per capita in the world. We are highly reliant on private vehicles, but it's not really private, is it? Because you're competing for space on public roads, and you're often competing with other modes that are actually more efficient, safer, and could do it better if only we made that collective investment. And I mean, not just in Auckland, Wellington, Christchurch, and a few other places, but even thinking about public transport in an interregional sense, so that it's easier to get from a Hamilton to a Napier. That doesn't need to be subsidised, but it needs to include consideration around accessibility and ease of letting New Zealanders and our visitors get from place A to place B, because that's ultimately what transportation is around, getting from A to B safely, with a degree of comfort, at a frequency or in a journey time that works for you, and ideally at a cost that doesn't act as a barrier either.
Thank you all. David?
Yeah, sorry, I'd make an observation on advocacy. Something we've really learned through the Accessibility Action Plan is advocacy has quite a short half-life. There's a lot of, people are very empathetic to the needs of people with disabilities, but that empathy often doesn't translate into action because of all the competing priorities within within an organization. So going back to that need to sort of really turn that, you know, attach that to a plan is really key. And, you know, and with that plan with dollar signs attached to it.
And recognizing the complexity, right, David? Because there's so much trade space, as Teresa was saying, in the transport space, that there are always going to be, if you like, winners or losers on some dimensions, right? You put bike racks on the front of buses, you know, you enable people to move to connect up parts of the system, but you potentially slow down. You have to make infrastructural changes. There are potential safety implications for that if it's not done right. You know, it can compromise lights on the front of the bus, forward-looking radar systems that deal with passenger collision detection and avoidance. So understanding that it's a really challenging environment to get it right, but that shouldn't stop us trying to do as much as we possibly can.
Thank you all. And I think we've got 3 questions here. David, there's one here. Will Metlink provide inclusive training to all bus drivers, regardless of operator of the operator company? And can this be a condition of working on in our public system?
Yeah,
No.
look, brilliant question. It is actually our #1 priority in our action plan. And I'm my team are providing funding for that. So we have spoken to a wide variety of people in the sector. We've identified that as one of the key barriers to using public transport. So we're actually pulling together a procurement plan at the moment and hope to go to market in the new year to create a training module that will be shared with all operators across all modes and extended through, hopefully, to taxi drivers as part of the total mobility scheme. And that training will first outline kind of what the obligations, actually what the social obligations are of meeting the needs of people with disabilities. And the second module will be a bit more practical about actually what you need to do as a driver in certain situations across the full range of disabilities, including neurodiversity.
And can I just chip in, Pete? If we want to make our available funding go further, this shouldn't just be a Wellington thing. You know, this should be across New Zealand. So NZTA are not in this panel group, but you know, there are times where NZTA could do something that's consistent at a national level that is of value to Auckland Transport, is of value to Greater Wellington, Environment Canterbury, et cetera, and the requirements for urban buses, which you can find online, plays a role in standardizing elements of those urban buses so that you get a degree of consistency across the country, as an example.
I think we've got time for a couple more questions. Let's see what we've got here. If your organization could set fares for disabled persons, what would they be? I ask this as a member of the Aotearoa Collective for Public Transport Equity. Anybody?
I think we have half price, essentially a half price fare for accessibility. I think that's about right.
Right.
We do believe that you shouldn't provide things for free because things do have a value.
Yes.
And so we think that's acknowledging for longer distances, as with all people who pay for public transport, that can be a challenge, but it can still very competitive against any of the other alternatives.
Yeah. Thank you. Now this one, this is a good question. Will there be extended availability to the hours of operation to obtain accessible transport without, yeah, that's probably the question in a nutshell.
Is that with reference to total mobility or general public transport?
General transport for, well, in particular taxis that don't run late at night, or airport shuttles, for example.
Yeah, it's a real challenge. I think the total mobility operating model is and it's been under review for some time. I believe, by the Ministry of Transport, but there's a real issue there with actually taxi availability, particularly once you get outside of the centre of the city. So there's no easy answer to that. We are always looking at options where funding allows to extend the reach and the hours of our public transport service, if we can. But the total mobility one is a difficult one under the current operating model.
Well, I think that about wraps up our questions. So thank
no,
you all.
Pete, sorry, Juliana.
Oh, sorry, there's one I've missed.
We still have, this panel goes to, we still have time to address all the other questions.
Okay, so the question I've got at the bottom here, can Metlinks, sorry, I'm just going to read this question. Sorry, it's just disappeared on me. There it is. More information.
I can paste the question for you.
Yep, that'd be great.
Can Metlink prioritize keeping rail stations open, even if not fully accessible, rather than closing them? No service is less accessible than partially accessible.
Yeah, we certainly from a customer experience perspective advocate for this. So there are operational considerations and funding issues that don't necessarily align with that, but certainly as part of the action plan, we would go as far to recommend that there's certain stations, or at least there's one station in every part of the region, say an Upper Hutt or Lower Hutt, that is fully accessible and fully connected by a high frequency bus route. I'm not aware of we don't plan to close any stations in the short to medium term, but there has been, our operator has removed staffing because we removed ticketing at some of our stations where there were ticketing officers when we introduced Snapper. But we do have call points, and another option is also to promote the use of our contact centre more for people who have queries. Hope that answers that.
And I think there's one here around training. Can your organizations start training to persuade NZTA to use it as a pilot system, i.e. don't wait for the perfect training module, start now so that we can get a nationally consistent option?
So I think this goes to Jonathan's point and what Dave was talking about, a Wellington training module. And I mean, some of that can address, I mean, I will go straight back off the school and go out to a couple of key operators in Wellington and highlight what came up. One thing in transport that I find very good working in the bus side of the business is a driver's license is like a building consent. You know, it's the minimum standard to get you on the road. And former race car drivers like Greg Murphy and neuroscientists would say it's by no means enough to put people in charge of a vehicle and out on the road. Bus operators in New Zealand have quite extensive training programs on the technical side. That is the opportunity when they're doing refresher training to touch on some of the points like Jonathan touched on today. So I think the answer to that question is yes, it doesn't even have to wait for David to roll out his training module or for a national training module on this sort of topic to be addressed to start getting the message out to drivers of, hey, you shouldn't be challenging people on concession tickets like that. As I said, I just found that wrong. Would you agree with that, David? We can start quite quickly. We don't need to wait for a formalized training module.
Completely agree. It would just be at least another year's delay, really. I think local government and where it's reasonably well resourced, like in Wellington, Auckland, Christchurch, has the ability to do things at reasonable speed and get them out there. And if they will share that IP with anyone,
And I know Teresa's team and David's team have regular forums with the operators in their areas to talk about things, and this is the sort of thing that can be put on the regular catch-up as well.
Absolutely.
There's another question that's come through. Will there be an effort to standardize the accessible buses, trains, etc., and make sure they all adhere to a modern and more robust equipment standard, such as ramps and spaces within those?
So I'll refer that person to have it Google requirements for urban buses and have a look at the NZTA guidelines, because that's actually all covered in there. And if there are issues you think are not well covered in there, I'm on the panel that looks at that requirement for urban buses, and I know the right people in NZTA to talk to. Send me an email. But the specifications are there. You do get operators with different vehicles in their fleets. All vehicles purchased today should meet those requirements. Vehicles purchased 10 years ago would have met the requirements of the day. So the standards are changing all the time. And what I'm saying is you don't get a fully homogenous fleet, but you can see what the standards of today are by having a look at that document.
And I'll add to that we have a public transport accessibility group who are a fantastic group of people who give Auckland Transport advice on accessibility around a whole host of projects. And one of the things they worked with was the design of the new ferries, which we're commissioning. And obviously you don't commission a new ferry every day. So it's a really great opportunity to make those vessels much more accessible than their predecessors. To Rob's point, they were designed to the standards of the day, and now we have new modern standards.
And that's a really good point too, Teresa, because it's probably a rail equivalent, and I don't know what it is, but I suspect you would find it in that space as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, we've got a question here from Thomas. How is the UN Convention being used to ensure government funds, the government funds accessibility within your organization?
Well, I think by establishing accessibility charter, at least that acknowledges the role of the UN Charter, whereas before it really wasn't formally acknowledged at a policy level. So that's the approach we've taken. As a specific funding tool itself, unfortunately, I don't think it has the cut through that maybe it should as a standalone thing, which is probably why we packaged it in as part of our charter, which is a much more specific thing.
Yeah, I would need to go away and look into that, definitely.
There's a question here around those with disabilities being left behind, or if the transport mode is running late. Can you all comment on what the process of your organizations are around leaving those with disabilities if the mode is running late, or they don't know how to use the equipment to board the person with a disability?
That would be obviously it has to be reported for us to know that it happened. I've seen it happen just being a PT user, and it's disgraceful. It needs to be reported. If you can report the bus, the bus route, the time of day, and where you were, then we can identify that. And even if you really got good sight, the actual bus four-digit bus number, and then we'll quickly find it. That will be raised through our complaint system, and it will be given a high priority because of the seriousness of it. We will follow up with the operator and expect a response within a few days.
There's a thought on that, and I've just made it up. But I have a friend actually who worked with me in Justice who has challenges using public transport. She got knocked over a few times trying to get on a bus, and that undermined her confidence to use buses. And this was long before I moved into this industry. What about changing the situation? So we'll probably still have fresh in our mind the bus driver shortage and buses full and passing by. What about giving priority to people to board? I would have hoped that my friend, people would have been helpful and supportive of her getting on rather than knocking her over on the rush to get into the bus. I think there's a lot we need to do, and what are challenging times with behaviors becoming more aggressive, more violent, of re-educating our people. And that auntie campaign, I think you've got, David, and there might be something similar in Auckland. What would your auntie say? Trying to push that. And although you don't want to cause escalation as a passenger, working at least to say, hey, how about we look after this person? A little bit of community responsibility for those others you're traveling with. You wouldn't do it to your kid, but for some reason, when we think we're with a bunch of strangers using public transport, our behaviors can become much more aberrant, the same way you saw those behaviors on the internet. That distance creating almost license to behave poorly. I think we need to all push back harder on that. And there's my thought. Why don't we actually go, no, you go on. You've got enough challenges in your transportation journey that you take this bus, and I'll wait for the next one.
I totally agree. And also, I agree with David's point about the importance of reporting it. And yes, of course, it puts the onus on the person who's been disadvantaged by being left behind, but it's really important, and our operators will jump on that quite quickly because it is a very serious issue that shouldn't be happening at all.
Great, thank you. And another question here, how can councils be made to ensure that the requirements for accessibility are actually read, understood, and implemented?
Look, I go back to creating ensuring that it's in policy and the frameworks that support that policy. So getting it formally acknowledged, ratified by that council, and then following that up with an action plan or some framework that ensures that actually there's ongoing monitoring of that progress for that. Otherwise, you're just in a situation where it's sort of, it becomes very, very adversarial.
Yeah, and I think to have, as David says, proper targets and measurements so we can be held accountable if we're not reaching those targets and measurements. That's really important.
I'd also highlight at two levels, not just the regional council layer. I know Teresa's a little bit different with Auckland Transport, but also at the local council level when it comes to parking and some of the infrastructural aspects, because it's a complex system. And if we don't get the infrastructure working with the vehicles, working with, potentially things like busways and the likes that speed up the journey time and make it more attractive, we're not addressing the total system. So someone needs to challenge that. That is a big part of the role in my mind, of both the Ministry of Transport and the NZTA as well.
Yep.
Watching how the system's working and making tweaks to improve it.
On Teresa's note, so we know 1% of our fares on our bus network are accessible fares. So that's clearly not a representation of the community that should be able to use an accessible concession. Now, it's a bit of a moot point about what that actual number is, but let's say it's at least sort of 7%, maybe 10%. Yeah, we're establishing targets around patronage because that's the ultimate measure of success.
Yeah.
Great. I think we've got time for one final question. If you were building buses and trains, what changes would you make to ensure that there were adequate, or what changes would you make to ensure there's space available for those with disabilities?
Oh, there are so many changes we could make. And I mean, it starts, as you leave your house, changes that we could make to the quality and the size of the footpath, to the size of the bus stop. Is it accessible for everybody? Is it built to the right level? So for the bus trainers or the drivers, as we've spoken before, more space inside the buses for different mobilities. It's a really long laundry list.
Yeah.
Lifts and train stations that 100% work perfectly the whole time.
Yeah, and I agree with Teresa on the infrastructure, but given that question was specifically about, the vehicle or the carriage or the likes, look at the expertise overseas as well. I mean, I think Transport for London's doing some amazing stuff. There's some really good technologies being embraced. And I go back to what Juliet said. It's really important you get that in the design phase with those who build those vehicles or carriages, because retrofitting costs you an awful lot more and often has compromises in doing that. So getting the design brief right and getting it in the offering. New Zealand's a really small market. I'll just focus on what I know for buying buses. We've just had our bus and coach show and conference last week, and some of the European buses and some of the Chinese buses that were on display are a massive step up on what's available now. But first, you've got to be prepared to pay for it. And secondly, you've got to know actually what you need, which means understanding your customer and what you value and therefore what you offer.
I just, I'll say one slightly controversial thing, probably for our more general customer bases. I think we're a little obsessed with seating. So a lot of the buses in Wellington really serve the purpose of mass transit. They're really, and that they just have too many seats in my view. Yes, you need priority seats for people who need a seat, but like for sort of 2-zone, 3-zone journeys, you could probably do with a lot less seats and a lot more standing room. Get on a tram in Melbourne or a metro anywhere in the world, and you'll see all that extra space. And of course, that where there's extra space, that can be provide a lot more accessibility for devices. But with that, the caveat, you also need to ensure you provide priority seating, which we currently do.
Yeah. And I'm glad you caveated that for 2-3 zone there, David, because then, a journey from the Wairarapa into Wellington, the requirements are different, and perhaps in terms of comfort levels, amenity, etc. as well.
Great. Thank you all. I think we're going to wrap it up. So I'll pass back to Chrissy. Thank you all.
Apai tauke, awesome. Ngā mihi to the doers panelists and mediator, Pete. Now we're moving on to our second panel, the deciders. Mediating this corridor is Vivian Naylor. Vivian is a passionate advocate for universal design, with over 25 years as the barrier-free advisor with CCS Disability Action. She has worked on major infrastructure projects in Auckland, providing accessible design advice to councils, architects, and the building industry. A founding trustee of the Barrier Free New Zealand Trust, Vivian also delivers workshops on universal access and design and has contributed to advisory panels across housing, urban design, and transport projects. Welcome, Vivian.
Thank you very much, Chrissy. Yes, it's my pleasure to be able to facilitate the Deciders workshop. So first of all, we've got Warren Quirk. He's the Small Passenger Service Association, the director. I had to look up this organisation because I wasn't sure what it was, and then realised it was the New Zealand Taxi Federation. So thank you, I've learned something there. Our second speaker is Andrew McGill. He's with Auckland Transport, and he's the group manager for Transport Network Planning and Policy. And our third panelist is Billy Moore. She's the CEO of the Airports New Zealand Association. And again, I looked up to see what they did, and their members range from the largest airports through to the smallest aerodromes. And like with the previous panel, unfortunately, we don't have Adam Lawrence with us. He was representing Waka Kotahi, the New Zealand Transport Agency. He's unable to join us today, which gives us more time for the existing panelists. And the question again for each one is what is the role of transport in the process of inclusion and belonging of people with disabilities? So Warren, can you start us off, please?
Yeah, sure. Well, certainly in the small passenger industry space, total mobility is a big aspect to it. We changed to the Small Passenger Service Association from the Federation, Taxi Federation, after the amendments to the Land Transport Act in 2017, where all small passenger service providers became under the same legislation. Probably just touch on Jonathan's point from earlier that the total mobility scheme is not fit for purpose. I would totally agree with that. It was one of our 2 points that we put to the briefing to the incoming minister late last year around total mobility. We've had real concerns about that for some time. Just for the amount of type of work that we do, David Boyd sort of mentioned that only 1% of their movements involved someone with a disability. Ours, I know in Wellington, there's one company where 37% of the work that they do is total mobility. So that just shows you how significant it is for our people.
Interesting. Thank you very much. It's a long-awaited review. It's been on the cards for so long. Thank you, Warren. Andrew, over to you.
Thanks, Vivian. Hi, everybody. I mean, it goes without saying that transport is absolutely crucial. It's what connects us, or if it doesn't work well, disconnects us. And so we've all got a responsibility to play in this space. And a lot has changed, but a lot more needs to change. And I'm not, you know, the people who are attending this session know this better than me. But I think more than anything else, it's not about providing just an opportunity, but it's about providing dignity as well. That's something which has to come through in the work that's done in terms of the experience for people, is a dignified experience of connecting with other people and with opportunities. So it has to be, you know, the right level of service for people. So it's not enough to provide something, it has to be provided in a way that enables dignity. And so that's the challenge, I think, that's before all of us in the work that we're doing across all the different parts of the system. And part of the problem is it is a very complex system with a lot of different players, as we've seen today. So we've got to coordinate properly in order to get, you know, this dignified outcome across every single component, every single step in the journey. And it's a challenge, but we have to do it because we've got to make the transport system work for everybody. Otherwise, it's not right. Thanks, Vivian.
Right. I could say a lot to you on that one, Andrew, but I won't do so right now. Thank you. And Billy, thank you.
Thank you, Vivian, and thank you for including me in this session, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here. And I think Andrew put his comments beautifully. For airports, our passion is helping people to live connected lives, and that's something that must be accessible to everyone. And for us, inclusion means not just refining the physical environment, which is something that airports think and plan a lot as infrastructure providers, but also the comfort and experience of travel. And as Andrew mentioned, you know, that dignity, the predictability of travel. It's already a stressful experience, particularly aviation. And we recognise that when the process is designed for non-disabled people, that stress just becomes so much more heightened. The physical environment, as I mentioned, is a key focus for airports, ensuring master planning for terminals. Other aeronautical and commercial infrastructure welcomes disabled people, but increasingly we're seeing further initiatives to make the experience at airports more predictable and more comfortable, like the sunflower lanyards for non-visible disabilities, lower sensory bathrooms, quiet pods, airport guides that step through every stage of the process and what to expect. So it's been good to see a more diverse view of how to make the experience more inclusive of people with different needs. And I think our challenge is to just keep pushing that further and further. Thank you.
I'm going to take advantage and ask you a question here.
Please.
How much do you participate with the airlines in terms of the facilities that you're putting into the airport? I mean, thinking of Auckland Airport now is having a big overhaul and development happening there. How much do you work in with the airlines as to what they're wanting in terms of the designs of the public spaces, not their particular lounges, etc., but the public spaces, like design of toilets and such like?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure how that will be airport by airport, but airports have to do their planning alongside their key customers. And from an airport perspective, that is the airlines. So there is a consultation process that they have to work through on needs, inputs, and particularly around costs, because ultimately it's through the airlines that infrastructure is funded. So there will be that level of collaboration. What I think is an ongoing challenge is what we call, is a little bit too jargony, but the customer journey through the different entities that operate on the airport precinct. So as you go through the travel experience in the airport, you're going through an airport controlled space, through a customs or aviation security controlled space, through to an airline controlled space. And the challenge is to how can we make that more seamless over time, because they're all controlled by different entities with potentially different expectations and goals. And to be honest, this is a challenge across all issues that we deal with around the ecosystem of aviation, but one where this topic really highlights it, and just how working better together can get a much better result for someone going through that system. So it won't be perfect, but there'll definitely be some consultation. But I think that when it comes to things like toilets and infrastructure facilities, for the most part, that will be the airport itself using insights and research that they may have themselves in terms of the way that they might have designed the facility.
Right. Okay, thank you for that. So my next question was the same as for the previous panelists. What is one specific action that you can take in your role within the transport sector to immediately enhance accessibility and inclusion for people with disabilities? And Warren, are you happy to start again?
Yeah, I'm happy to start again. Yeah, thinking about this, I think from our perspective, today I'd like to create some awareness for everyone viewing this, because we obviously advocate for the industry, but what we're advocating for total mobility will take many players to put their hands up and join us in making things better. So that's the one thing, is awareness, creating that awareness. Some of the problems that we face with total mobility, the inconsistency of the way some of the funding, there is subsidies for fitting out of wheelchair hoists into vans. The way that that's allocated across the different regions, the PTAs, public transport authorities, is extremely inconsistent, and it just becomes problematic for our members to try and create a business plan to make it economically viable to enter into that industry. So what we're seeing is, as drivers or vehicles become too aged and they leave the industry, they're not being replaced. So we're going to see this over the next few years of becoming more problematic of actually trying to service the disabled community. And this is, I shouldn't be receiving phone calls from people that can't get a wheelchair vehicle at 8:30 at night in Christchurch, New Zealand's second biggest city, because there's none available. And that just simply comes down to it's not financially viable for operators to provide that service. We are public transport. This often comes up. Our small passenger service public transport, and I've even seen MPs sort of scratch their head. I've seen NZTA scratch their heads over it. We are public transport, and for this area, the funding needs to be at a level to keep it maintained. If we look at our neighbours in Australia, I've had some figures for what they they get every time they uplift a person in a hoist, in a wheelchair. They're averaging across the different states over $20 a lift. New Zealand, it's been at $10 a lift since 2004. It just doesn't reflect the work involved in doing that. So that needs to be adjusted. But yeah, by far and away, it's making sure that there's consistency of the allocation of the funding that the PTAs put aside. They budget for it, they put it aside, but it doesn't get spent. It doesn't get picked up. Only 23% of it was picked up in the last round of from the Public Transport Fund. So that's a real issue. It's always good to have some solutions, and we put through some solutions to our briefing to the incoming minister around total mobility, what needs to happen in that area, and we'll, once a review comes out for public consultation, we will certainly put in our 2 cents worth in for that. But one thing we find really critical was around driver training. That was touched on in the first panel session, because it's obviously a lot of vulnerable people use the service. So that the training has to be there in the first instance. And the amendments to the Land Transport Act in 2017 took away a lot of that oversight and training. So to open it up to the likes of Uber at this point, or Rideshare at this point, I don't think would be positive. But we think the pendulum of legislation needs to spring back a little bit more, so there's a lot more oversight in the industry. Yeah, that's probably what I'd like to see today. Yeah.
You'd be supported on that. Thank you. Is there still the training that the NZQA runs? Is that still available to your members?
Yes, it is. That's right. It is for the wheelchair access type stuff. Yeah. But
well, across
really,
the board.
If you're looking at it, if you have a peer endorsement to drive a vehicle, why would that not have to be for everybody? Yeah, if we're talking about being inclusive, providing public transport for everybody in New Zealand, why should not every peer endorsed driver have some sort of training in that regard of how to carry people in that situation?
Yeah, yeah. It's associated with customer service.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's for everybody. Yeah. Thanks, Warren. Andrew, over to you again.
Oh yeah, Vivian, do you want to repeat the question?
Oh, right. Hang on a sec. What is one specific action you can take in your role within the transport sector to immediately enhance accessibility and inclusion for people with disabilities?
Cool. I think the most useful thing that I can do in my world of doing sort of strategies and plans and policies and bylaws and things is we've recently completed work on an Auckland Transport Equity Framework. So that looked at what does equity mean from a transport perspective within our region. And it was about highlighting where there are issues and what we need to do about them. And my role now is going to be, and my team's role is to embed that within the organization and make sure that that's something which is a part of that decision-making process. In that equity framework, we looked at spatial problems and then system-wide problems that exist around our region. And we looked at areas where people don't have access with transport to their basic needs, where people don't have access to transport for more regional needs, where they're experiencing the negative impacts of the transport system, where transport doesn't provide for the essential physical access needs for all people, which is of most criticality for the audience here today, and also not providing for the personal safety needs of all people as well. And so what we're doing now is going to be putting that lens through on projects that are coming through, so that it's something which is part of that decision-making process. We're not always going to have everything done in that way, but it is something that's in the mix for the first time and provides AT staff with an ability to look at a process of what they should be thinking through in whatever job they're doing, be it designing roads, be it interacting with customers in any way. And so that, I hope, will be a really useful resource internally. It's something which can also be accessed on our website. We've published it on our website. And now we're turning our attention towards embedding that within the organization. So that's something I'd say which would be the most concrete from my sort of long-term strategic planning world. I think the other thing is just then embedding accessibility and embedding equity within all our other work. So we're about to start work next month on our new public transport plan for the next decade. And so we'll be working with our internal accessibility group, public transport accessibility group, PTAG, and also with Council's Disability Advisory Panel, as well as other advisory panels on the crafting of this, so that the needs of the community can be built into this plan, which will cover every change and every policy around public transport in Auckland between now and 2035. So that's my concrete thing, Vivian, in my more planning world.
That's very encouraging. Having been involved with the accessibility groups for so long, it's frustrating from our perspective as a sector that we sort of educate, if you like, the people in the deciding side of things, and nicely educated, next thing they leave, sometimes because they want to, sometimes because they've got no choice with restructuring. And this is hugely irritating. So
absolutely,
got to be a way around that. We can't keep losing people who know what they're talking about it and have got the commitment to apply it, and that's what's so important. So
yes.
Thank you. That's encouraging news. Billy, over to you. Do you want me to read the question again?
No, I'm good.
Yeah,
what
good.
one thing can I do? Yes. So similar to this session, NZ Airports is a convener. And so that is the main action that I can take in terms of supporting more progress here. And doing that, we can encourage more consistency across the network. I mean, obviously one important part of traveling by air is that you can't just use one airport, you're going to use at least two. And so if you have a challenging experience at one, the other end of the journey will be affected as well. So my job is to bring those airports together alongside experts and alongside the disabled community as well, to push the boundaries of what they might have done so far, what they could do next, and get some healthy competition in there as well, because the airport community they're fantastic, eager, enthusiastic people who really want to do a good job for the customer, and I mean all customers. So the more that I can create sessions for them to be challenged on this issue, I do expect a really good response. So we've got a session coming up, and Kimberly from Access Matters has helped us with the session at our upcoming conference, where we will have a focus on accessibility. And I note one of the really great questions in the chat so far around design and consultations with the disabled community. We'll raise that with our members to find out who's doing that well, what lessons they can learn from each other, and what processes we can encourage, particularly across regional and smaller airports. The other thing I would flag is that over in Australia at the moment, there is a really strong focus on accessibility in the aviation sector. There was a report called the Aviation White Paper released with a full section on this issue, which is really, really interesting and great to see the prominence of this issue in all of the themes of that government work. And they're really pushing standards, airport airline coordination, the issue we saw before, we brought up before around how do you get a more consistent experience. So we'll be looking at that work in Australia to see what can be carried over to New Zealand.
Good. Don't keep reinventing the wheel. encouraging also that you're bringing in people who know what they're talking about. It's nothing about us without us, because yes, it's a very diverse community, as you probably realize. So the more people that you've got with that good general knowledge that can contribute in the design makes all the difference, getting it right and designed right in the first place. Yeah, thank you, Billy.
It adds that meaning as well. So we have a lot of members in the infrastructure space who are wonderful experts in design and development, but it is not the same as hearing from our actual customers on what matters, what the investment means to them and how it changes their travel experience. So it's just so important that we get that voice and prioritize that voice, that it's not just a side part of our normal work, but we integrate it much more prominently in our discussions.
Brilliantly, thank you. Yes, with universal design, which is, as you appreciate, I'm sort of hot on, having been involved with the design of the Coro Club back in about 2015 in Auckland, and the fact that it was a big room and they didn't want to have the toilet arrangement as we would normally expect in the accessible toilet, and so important for many people, particularly wheelchair users, to have water close to the pan, and it's no point having the basin right on the other side of the room. So on that occasion, it was a matter of, well, we've still got to provide that, but let's have a handheld hose alongside the toilet, so there's got that option, which of course also had the benefit of providing a facility that Muslims use and are very important to them. And when checked with the Coro Club, apparently it had been a very successful move. So it's nice to think that what you're designing so-called for the accessible community, that it actually has good outcome for another section of community as well. Right, thank you all very much indeed. Now, Juliana, I'm going to be very naughty and ask if you would manage the chats for me, because I'm listening to what's being said and can't concentrate on that and read all these messages at the same time. There's so much here that's coming in. Would you mind doing that for me?
Yeah, not a problem at all. So we have a question from Linda. As a disabled person, I always think before using any service, what is the emergency procedure when there is a disaster, example, earthquake?
Who wants that one?
It's a great question. And I can absolutely see why it would be constantly on your mind. Obviously, once you're on an aircraft, there are specific rules and processes that are designed to support people that will require assistance in an emergency. In an airport, you're obviously in a public space, and I can imagine there could be some anxiety about whether you'll get the support you might need if you need to move or evacuate, for instance. Each airport will have different setups around the level of staffing they have access to, whether they have police on precinct, things like that. So I think this is a useful takeaway for us in terms of how do we, particularly as I mentioned before, more and more airports are providing really clear little guides to what to expect at the airport at each stage, and integrating an emergency response into that could be a really good addition, so that you then see, okay, I'm going to be going to Hamilton Airport, this is what happens, this is their protocol if there needs to be an emergency response. So if you don't mind, I might take that as an action for me.
We're fortunate here that we don't have terrorist attacks, because I guess there's a lot we can learn from overseas as to how we could manage in a situation like that. It's not just earthquakes nowadays.
I recall, as an ex-Wellingtonian, I recall one earthquake there a few years back, and things are a bit chaotic, but certainly our members were very busy. We are classed as essential service, and it was extremely difficult at that time to try and get a taxi or a ride share. Just simply the demand just outstripped supply. But Yeah, we're very conscious that we're an essential service and do everything to try and provide that in those sort of situations.
Thank you so much. So quite timely, because the next Corridor for Change on the 11th of December will be around emergency preparedness. I think we have time to put just one final question, but really quick response. It's from Connor. My question is to all. Speaking of the hidden disability sunflower that airports recognize, how would you people in this panel adapt it into their training programs?
So I just missed the first part of that question. Can you just repeat it, Juliana?
Speaking of the hidden disability sunflower that airports recognize, how would you panelists adapt it into the training programs?
I can say something if you like. And I just want to acknowledge, I think Tanya comment about her use of the sunflower lanyard and not having a very good result at one airport. I think the big challenge, I think, with the sunflower lanyards, and we have had good rollout at the airports and with airlines of this initiative, is to ensure there's something that can actually be offered alongside understanding. So the first step is that those lanyards allow you to easily communicate that you may need additional support. The question then is, what support can be provided beyond somebody lending you a helping hand, perhaps guidance and discussion. And so it's taking it to the next level on things like, for instance, Christchurch Airport's quiet pods and places that you can go and other tools that you can use, I think is the key issue to ensure it's not just a tokenistic thing, but something that actually allows you access to something that helps you at the airport. So I do want to just acknowledge that both that question and Tanya's feedback, which I will take to Palmerston North Airport.
Thank you very much. I see Chris has come back on again, so obviously she's going to take over. I appreciate all your contributions. Our time went very quickly. Thank you all very much.
Ka pai. Tino rawa te kōrero of the deciders, panelists and mediator, Vivian, ngā mihi ki a koutou. Now looking at our schedule, we now have a 10-minute break before our third panel, the creators and mediator Lee Warren joins us. So we should be back. It's 10:42 now, so we should be back at 10:52. Ngā mihi ki a koutou for now. Kia ora. Okay, ngā mihi, welcome back everybody. It's Chrissy Cowan speaking. And now we're going through to our next group of panelists. And that's the creators is coming up now. Mediating this panel is Lee Warren. Lee is a T12 paraplegic who found a new life through sport after a motorcycle injury at 16. His passion for inclusion has led him to advocate for better accessibility in urban environments. Lee has worked with Auckland Transport, Auckland Council and Auckland Hospital to promote inclusive design, helping organisations see inclusion as an active process that requires everyone's commitment. Welcome and ngā mihi, Lee.
Thank you for that introduction, Chrissy. Yes, I think it's for all of us to easily say, here's some problems, somebody needs to fix it. But I think of that old adage, be the change you want to see, right? If only more people could do that. It's my distinct pleasure to introduce our panel. I'll introduce each of you all at once, and then individually, if you can tell us a little bit about yourselves. So Ed Collette, Senior Aircraft Program Manager at Air New Zealand, welcome. Tim Andrews, founder of Canary Organisation, welcome Tim. Adam Murison, from the General Manager at Aro Scooters, and Mandy Saar, Waikato Regional Customer and Crew Manager for Te Hui, Northern Explorer and Great Journeys New Zealand. Welcome. And if you would like to start, Ed, with a little introduction about yourself.
Thanks, Lee. My name's Ed Collett. As Lee said, I'm a Senior Aircraft Program Manager at Air New Zealand. So what that means is I'm responsible for the design and development of Air New Zealand's onboard product and the delivery of those aircraft. But I wear two hats within Air New Zealand. I'm also the lead for Air New Zealand's Disability Employee Network. And the reason I'm involved in that is because I have two children with disabilities. So my oldest son is autistic, and my youngest son has cerebral palsy, so is in a wheelchair. So what I bring as part of the design and development of the new products on the aircraft is the advocacy for change to improve that experience. So I'm also part of the International Airline Transport Association Accessibility Board, which is the global airline community getting together to improve accessibility as well as being involved on the new product development with the aircraft manufacturers, Airbus and Boeing, on what does an accessible cabin of the future look like.
Great. Thank you very much, Ed. And next we have Tim, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Kia ora. Thank you, Lee. So my name's Tim. I'm the founder of the Canary Organisation. I started Canary to tackle the ongoing issue of mobility parking abuses. So we are a mobility parking enforcement agency. That's all we do. I've been volunteering and supporting the Arthritis Organisation for 2 decades, so since I was 6 years old. It's really fueled my passion for accessibility from a very young age. So we focus on enforcing mobility parking in private spaces like shopping centres and supermarkets, where it's really often overlooked. We provide a completely free service to public-facing businesses who care about our disabled community and want to make a change.
Great. Thank you, Tim. And Adam?
Kia ora koutou. Yes, my name's Adam Muirson. I'm the General Manager at Ario Scooters. I've been building it from the ground up as the first socially conscious scooter operator. Our mission is to build a culture of goodwill on the streets in each city that we operate. I've been in micromobility since 2020, and I actually left at the end of 2022, essentially due to the lack of innovation that I was seeing around safety and access. I think we're probably all very aware of the grand promises that the industry had put forth around safety and access from 2018 onward, but it wasn't materializing. The reason I returned at the end of last year is I could see a company that was finally ready to invest in the level of design and innovation that could address the deep-seated safety and access issues that the industry has been causing globally.
Very true. And we have Mandy, if you'd like to introduce yourself. Thank you.
Kia ora, good morning. I'm so sorry I picked the computer today without a camera on it. How clever was that? Once again, I'm Mandy. I look after Te Huia, which is a commuter train that travels between Auckland and Hamilton and reverse twice a day. And we make sure, when we go through, I'll show you a slide, we make sure that all our disability passengers have the same abilities as people without disabilities. Yeah, we'll go through that later. We'll also look after the Northern Explorer, and they're on the same track with our disability passengers, and the Capital Connection, which is Palmerston North to Wellington. They're pretty much the same as Te Huia, same carriages and everything is the same setup inside.
Great. Level access. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions for yourself, Mandy, and for Ed at the end of this. And as I know Tim, there's going to be some questions for him as well. The irony is the question that I'm about to ask you for individual replies, Tim actually does. Like, I don't understand how this is a question related. I should say, just tell me about Canary, because it's the same thing. Anyway, the question to you for the panel here is, what is one specific action that you can take in your role within the transport sector to immediately enhance accessibility and inclusion for people with disabilities? And in that, if I can actually just add a little bit extra and say, how do you enforce or encourage compliance within that as well? So again, if I could ask for Ed, if you'd like to start.
Sure, thanks, Lee. So within my role, the thing that I bring to the table is advocacy for people with disabilities, and to ensure that we are looking at everything from an accessible lens, ensuring equal experiences for everyone on board. I know that aviation is very challenging, but travel on aviation and accessible travel is so important for inclusion and making sure that everyone can reach out within New Zealand and globally with an equal experience for everyone. So the building on what Billy was talking about earlier, it's very critical that aviation as a whole is joined up and we're working collaboratively, because we can offer a really good check-in experience, but the airport and the government agencies, as far as security and immigration, then we lose control. So to ensure an equal experience, we have to all be working together, and that's happening. There's lots of discussions going on with the likes of Auckland Airport's new terminal build that we have input into, making sure that our check-in space is accessible. Someone mentioned the Corrie Lounge, that our Corrie Lounge is accessible, that everything in between our check-in and the aircraft is joined up, as well as when you get to the other end, be it Los Angeles, be it Houston, that we're offering a good experience on that end as well. So that's what is the kind of thing that I'm working on, is to make sure that we're looking at everything from a collaborative, accessible lens.
Great. Okay, thank you, Ed. Some good insights. Sorry, I was just waiting for you to keep going. I want to make sure you've finished before I jump in and say thank you. Cool. And the same question again to Tim, which again, do you need me to repeat the question?
No, I think it's fairly straightforward. Like you mentioned, everything we do is enabling accessibility. So, I mean, look, when we look at the exact question, one specific thing we can all do immediately is take ownership of mobility parking abuses and work towards stopping it. It's the entire reason I started Canary, after all. I mean, so I started Canary because years of witnessing mobility parking abuses, nothing was really done to address it effectively. So I've been volunteering and supporting Arthritis Organisation for 2 decades. And I've seen the impact that these abuses have on people with disabilities. I mean, the frustration, the pain, exclusion, the lack of respect, I can go on, and we all recognize this. So I designed a system from the ground up specifically to tackle this in private spaces. Our approach is so much more effective than traditional models. Councils only catch a fraction of offenders. With our system that we've designed has a catchment rate 30 times higher than the council average, from 3% catchment rate to over 90%. And the results we get really showcase that, with more than a 70% reduction in the rate of abuse in just 3 months at our pilot site. So we've designed a system that not just not just works to reduce these abuses, but also supports our community in multiple ways. Every breach leads to donations to amazing charities that support our disabled community every single day. Over just the last few months, we've already donated over $15,000 to some amazing charities. Basically, at Canary, what we do is we offer a completely free service to businesses. We handle everything, start to finish. There's no cost, and any businesses that care about this, all they need to do is just say yes. We handle everything start to finish. Our non-confrontational model means that businesses don't need to put their security staff or just even normal staff in potentially dangerous situations. Like we saw just a few weeks ago, confronting offenders of mobility parking abuses isn't always just a simple conversation. And look, what we're trying to do isn't just about mobility parking abuses. It's about creating an environment where people with disabilities can actually access the things that they want to. They can live their life without worrying whether there's going to be a park free for them, which is something they should never have to worry about. Mobility parking spaces, they're there for a specific purpose, not just everyday people just popping in for a few minutes or anything like that. It's our approach. I mean, we have seen how this benefits everyone, individuals, families, the community, and the charities that we support. So just one example of the things that we do is with the Western Community Centre, as a local community centre to that community. We've funded road trips for elderly residents, giving them access to places they couldn't visit otherwise and supporting the social inclusion. It's not just about preventing mobility parking abuse, it's about recognising their autonomy and respecting our disabled community. There's a real opportunity here for both public and private organisations to take ownership of this issue at their sites. By just saying yes, you can choose to be a part of that solution. That these spaces should be upheld as a matter of respect and inclusion, not just compliance. It's something that we can all do today and will have a really lasting impact.
Thank you, Tim. Again, we're all part of the solution. I can't help but think of Star Trek and how Spock said, well, he said lots of things, but the needs of the few outweigh the needs of the many. And this is a situation that a country or community is often viewed by how it respects and deals with the elderly and disabled within that community. So again, my same question to you, Adam, but I do know a little bit about what you do as well. And it almost seems superfluous to ask the question. Just tell us about yourself and the scooters.
Appreciate that. Well, yeah, look, I think there's a lot that we can be doing in the micromobility space. And there was a recent study out of Norway that I think highlighted what we already all knew. And it was saying that from the respondents that either had an impaired mobility or a visual impairment, when traveling through their cities, they considered poorly parked e-scooters or toppled e-scooters and e-bikes as either the #1 or #2 challenge for them. So I think there is just how much opportunity there is to improve. I know that, yes, 2018 to 21, I think there was considerable innovations and advancements in safety and access for both riders and pedestrians, but from 2021, it basically just stalled. And yes, COVID and the impacts on the global financial markets can be used as an excuse for so long, but that time passed. The technology is there that we can address these stubborn challenges now, and I've really enjoyed working alongside a number of disability and pedestrian advocacy groups to make sure that we use that technology the right way to do it. If I go back to your question about what can we be doing now, I think the #1 thing would be to legalize remote reparking, and I'll give that some context. So we recently were lucky enough to be awarded a licensed to operate a short-term trial in Auckland, mostly centered from sort of central West Auckland, sort of Auckland Central West, if that makes sense, but it's from the outer city suburbs, sort of New Lynn heading towards the city a little bit. The results that we had were amazing. So the compliance results, so every week council send people out to check, are your scooters parked the way they should be and providing safety and access for all. The stretch target for the current incumbents is 92%. So every 100 scooters they check, the stretch target is that only 8 of them will be blocking streets, which to me is already not good enough. But I also appreciate with the technology that has been used to date, there are limitations to how much labor you can spend on these things. But by using technology rather than sustainable labor forces, we were able to get a 99.3% compliance rate, which is just completely unheard of by these other guys. The way that works is our device, our scooter, it's a 3-wheel self-stabilizing device design. It means that it's very hard to topple. So accidental topples, environmental topples, they're gone. So you're going to have far less devices toppled in the first place. The biggest problem though you have is how people park. I think all operators do a very good job of working with councils to identify safe places to deploy devices, and they try to curb poor parking behaviours, but they're limited in how much they can do that. We have invested in control mechanisms. So when the scooter is parked, instead of hoping that the rider will take over and one that's usable, and then it, up in the air what the company might do with that, what we do is the scooter has 360-degree cameras. It automatically takes its own photos. At the moment, our team then reviews that, but we're feeding into an AI program, so eventually that'll be a real time and not require a human to do it. And if the scooter is not parked properly, if it's not safe, if it's impairing accessway, if it's simply just not considerate, then a member of our safety and access team can remote into it like a drone and repark it. And the vast majority of those, we're talking about moving it 10 meters, so it goes from the middle of the street to the side of the street, maybe parked behind a public trash can. So not only did we have 99.3% compliance rate, we also had a response rate of 8 minutes. So across the country, the response rate targets that providers are given is anywhere between 30 minutes to 90 minutes, depending on the council. So at 8 minutes, we had absolutely blitzed that, which was fantastic. Sorry, and just to give it a bit more context, unfortunately, it was in August that NZTA made it so that remote reparking was no longer legal, so we had to shut that feature down. We are actively working with NZTA, MOT, and Simeon Brown to overturn that. It's been great to see Simeon Brown publicly say that he wants a common sense solution to this. And I'm happy to say that at the end of last week, we got notice that MOT has put together a team a remote repark policy team who will be getting in touch with us this week. So we're feeling very positive that we should be able to get this technology back up and running and then hopefully scale it through New Zealand and clear up some access ways. Beyond that, I think something that I can be doing that is immediate, and I have been doing it, but I can continue to do it, is to provide disability advocacy groups really clear guidance on how do they apply pressure to incumbent providers and educate councils on how to lift the stubborn challenges around access and safety. The technology is available, but often the incumbent providers would prefer to delay that capital investment those solutions would require. And I think with having someone who's seen behind the curtain, tell exactly what the pressure points are, and we can apply the pressure to lift the industry as a whole.
That's fantastic, Adam. For those that don't know, that system got shut down, even though you were doing better than all the other providers out there. Like, my mind just boggles and blown with the inadequacies of governmental decisions. Like, anyway, sorry. Mandy, love to hear from you as well. Same question. What is the one specific action that you can take within your role in the transport sector to immediately enhance accessibility and inclusion for people with disabilities?
Yes, so I think our trains are really well set up for people with actual physical disabilities. So at the moment, I'm thinking mental disabilities, how my crew interact with people that have mental disabilities, because we do often have people that travel that are interesting characters. And it's that engagement, having the soft skills to have challenging conversations. That's where we're trying to go at the moment. We do work closely with Waikato Regional Council, and they've been amazing in helping us engage with those skills.
Sorry.
Yeah, I don't need to talk to 5 minutes about that. Sorry.
I know. I was like, bring it on, Mandy, bring it on. I thought you had a presentation.
No,
as well.
I do, but I thought that was just a question. I thought we'd go into the presentation after that, or would you like me to show you what our train looks like?
Absolutely,
All
please,
right.
by all means.
Bear with me. I'm not the best computer handler.
Well, if you could turn your screen on, that'd be good. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. Hang on. There's a share button. Let's go.
Okay.
Right. Hang on.
Mandy, it's Juliana here, the Zoom master.
Hi.
If you can please just describe the images that you're showing.
I'll do my best. I'm not the like I said, I'm not the
Just so
Thank you,
the
Juliana.
information is acceptable.
Sure. Right. How does that look? We got the screen up?
Yeah, we got the screen up. Thank you.
That's good.
Awesome. So welcome to Te Huia. This is obviously the train that connects the Waikato to Auckland. This is our accessibility door here. As you can see, there is a wheelchair sign on there, and there is it's like a bell, the second button down. If you ring it, it sends like a noise through the train that alerts the train manager that someone would like to hop on. So if we go to the next screen, that's what it looks like from the inside, from that door. So we have an A side and a B side, so you can do it from either side. There is a ramp, of course, and the blue button is the same button from outside. So if you were on the inside and press that blue button, you could alert the train manager that you'd like to hop off. Here we go is a little video of Shannon helping a gentleman with a wheelchair. Sorry, a walker.
So there is customer service putting the ramp down, and the individual with the walker is walking through the ramp. The ramp, the gradient is really good. It's not very steep.
Just placing the brakes on the walker. The handles on either side once the brakes are on the walker. Once he's secure, there's someone inside operating the controls and bringing him up. Brakes off, hands off the rails, and inside. As you can see, this lady's hopping on as well. And it's also for people that can't step up. We use that as well. We do get a lot of people that just physically can't. It is a good step to get up there, so we do use the ramp a lot. Okay. And this one here is a little video if everything shut down in the train, so there was no power. We do have a manual ramp. And this is just the gentleman that works for council testing it out for us. So the manual ramp's on, and he's going to roll down forward. As you can see, that works greatly as well. And so this is the inside of our accessibility carriage. On the left-hand side, you can see this is the gap for a wheelchair, and it mimics the same on the right. We can only take 2 wheelchairs at a time, and we are just having a few issues with the mobility scooters. They don't turn well in the aisle, and it can block the aisle, and then that, of course, causes another health and safety issue. That's what it looks like face on the wheelchair. There's a seatbelt there, the area, so they can lock into there. And our signs also done in Braille and Māori. This button here is done in Braille, and you can speak. It's got a speaker there as well. So if you push the button, it sends a message to what we call a TMS system. It's like a computer brain. So it goes into the cafe, and they will alert the train manager that whoever's sitting here needs help. These are also in the accessibility toilets as well.
So this is a press for assistance button.
Yeah, that's it. And you can see it just behind the toilet roll holder. There's a press for assistance button there. Nice big area if you need to use that. And that's in the same carriage as the wheelchair accessibility.
So this is the image of the onboard accessible toilet. It's quite spacious.
This one here is our hearing loop. You can hook in if you wear hearing aids, but if that doesn't work, we also have a safety card that you can read, and it shows where everything is on the train, help call buttons, what you can and can't do. It's pretty much a safety briefing. And also we do have here, which is our regional council's accessibility card. So if you do have a disability, you get free public transport within the Waikato, but this is also available on Te Huia in Auckland as well. And that's my little slideshow.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Mandy.
No
I can't
worries.
help but ask the question, is the hoist and ramps needed at every station?
No, we've got the availability to do it at every station. It just depends if we have a booking system, if you need it for a wheelchair. Otherwise, if you've got a walker or something else, we're happy just to help you on and off with it.
Fantastic.
Lee,
Okay.
likewise to Mandy, I'm happy to expand a bit more on not just answering the question if you want
Yeah,
on what Air
sure.
New Zealand's doing.
Yeah.
So Air New Zealand's been doing quite a bit in the disability and accessibility space recently. We were one of the first airlines in the world to recognise the Sunflower Lanyard, and I know there's been lots of questions about that. As I said, we've also been doing a lot of work with the likes of Te Whai Aotearoa in New Zealand to improve the level of New Zealand Sign Language within our airports and cabin crew staff on board. And that was working with them to develop a program where all our staff can learn 30 signs, travel-related signs. We worked on that with Te Whai Aotearoa to come up with those, and about 600 of our staff have now completed that. And interestingly, about 10% of those 600 have then gone on to learn night school classes around improving New Zealand Sign Language, to a much higher level as well. We also, with Te Whai Aotearoa, did a New Zealand Sign Language flight for New Zealand Sign Language Week, where all of our cabin crew on board that aircraft and our airport staff had a proficient level of New Zealand Sign Language. So we did all of our onboard announcements and gate announcements in New Zealand Sign Language as well. As well as also engaging with the community around testing some of our new products. So we're developing a new in-flight entertainment that'll be rolled out on our aircraft beginning of next year. And we got Te Whai Aotearoa in, we got Blind and Low Vision New Zealand in, and Autism New Zealand in to test that in-flight entertainment and give us feedback on what worked, what didn't. Could they connect hearing devices to it? All of those sorts of things. So really good feedback. So those are the kind of things. There's a lot else going on in the community around getting wheelchairs on board aircraft. That's being driven by the FAA in the US, and we're looped into that development to make sure that we're across it. Unfortunately, when it comes to the aircraft internally, we're very much driven by regulations as to what we can and can't do inside that. But there is a lot of work going on to improve that, especially driven out of the US Department of Transport and the FAA. And once they give guidelines on what we can do, then we can look at how we integrate those things into our onboard experience. So a lot going on for sure.
Great. Sorry, Ed, that is really good about explaining that. Thank you. I feel like I almost shut you down at the start there because you explained it so well, and then you had more to say. You were like, oh, we've got more to say. So I've had a look at a couple of the questions, and a couple of good ones that I've got for Adam and Tim are just about, for Tim, if you can just briefly explain what it is that you actually do, because somebody doesn't understand what it is that the Canary organization does. And then Adam, if I can then go to you, and if somebody's asked about if you can do a trial in another city, or what inhibits you from doing a trial in another city. So Tim, if I can ask you first, just to briefly capture that.
Definitely, and I do apologize. I was meant to say that's my fault. So how we work in particular is we are a private parking enforcement agency, specifically relating to mobility parking. The system that we use is a camera-based system. So we capture everyone parking the mobility parking spaces and then manually verify each of these to see whether they are displaying the permit or not. Now, of course, we're all human. Sometimes people forget their permits. That is not a problem. They just need to get in contact and actually just let us know. We'll get that waived immediately. So what we do is we issue $150 breach notices. Then from there, for every breach notice that's paid, we then do the $50 donations. That's 1/3 of all the revenue going through to some amazing charities. And we do a lot of work on top of that. Our goal is to work ourselves out of a job. So one of the biggest differences from my point of view between us and a lot of the other enforcement that happens with other organizations, we don't rely on wardens who just chance across abuses. We capture every person abusing these parks, most of every person at least. And from there as well, we don't use just one big sign near the entrances to lots and hope that everyone going through there will stop and read that for the few minutes it might take. Every park, where possible, has a sign itself. Every person parking there knows exactly what's going to happen. And that by itself has shown to really reduce the rate of abuses, because people recognize, some of these people recognize that they're not going to get away with it anymore, that there are real consequences for doing this.
Fantastic. Thanks, Tim. Sorry, I've got to cut you short. We have run out of time. Adam, that question is in the Q&A section. And if each of you, Mandy and Ed as well, can have a look at the Q&As and see what questions in there that you can answer as well, that would be fantastic. Again, the korero today has been amazing. Ngā mihi to all four of you for being here today, and for New Zealand Sign Language interpreters doing a fantastic job. Big thank you to everyone and everyone that's watching as well. Thank you.
Bye. Ngā mihi, Lee, and ka pai, the creators panelists. Thank you so much for your time and contribution this morning. We now go into our final panel, the thinkers. And mediating this panel is Nia Lovu, who is the Auckland Committee Chair for iLead and a Community Coordinator at Wakatautua. Nia is a major advocate for Pacific youth and with disabilities. Welcome, Leah.
Hello, hello. How's everyone doing? Waiting for, there we go, is everyone on? Okay, everyone's on. Hi, everybody. I hope your morning has going great so far. I know that we are the last panel, but we are going to be the greatest panel of the show, you know? And so before we start off and before you start talking about yourselves, I'm just going to introduce your names and your titles, and then maybe you can go into depth of what it's about. So first is Simon Kingham. He's a professor at University of Canterbury Te Whare Wanganga of Waitaha. Then we have the beautiful Shanti Amaretunga, honorary professor and researcher at Transport Research Centre, University of Auckland, Waipapa Taumata Rau. Then we have Bridget Doran, the researcher and civil and transport engineer. Welcome, guys. So I'm just going to chuck Simon under the bus since you're the only male on our panel. So introduce yourself. What are you all about?
Kia ora. So tēnā koutou, ko te whare wananga o Waitaha o ku wahi mahi ko Simon Kingham ahau. Tēnā koutou katoa. So I'm a professor of geography at the University of Canterbury. I've been researching issues about transport and teaching about them for a few years. I do feel a bit of an imposter with Shanti and Bridget, though, because they are truly experts in this topic, and I feel it's peripheral to what I know about. But what I do know is that I was, for 6 years, the Chief Science Advisor to Ministry of Transport. So I did that until 2 months ago, when they decided they didn't need any science advice in the Ministry of Transport anymore. And I'd like to feel that I was irreplaceable, but I know that's most certainly not the case. So I guess I have some sort of set.
Simon, excuse me, just Juliana here, the Zoom master. Could you please slow down a little bit?
Yes, I will.
New Zealand language, thank you.
You're not the first person that said that to me. When I get excited, I speak too fast and I have an English accent. So apologies, and thank you for saying that. So I have some experience of what has been happening in government, and I have had some research which has touched on the issue of accessibility and disability. But my main, I think it's 20 years of research and teaching, but I guess partly that I have been involved in government more recently. So I have some reflections I can bring to the conversation there, but I do feel an imposter with Bridget and Shanti. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And thank you for being the first one. So Shanti, would you like to introduce yourself?
Tēnā koutou katoa, kia ora, mai tātou. Ko Shanti Amaratunga tōku ingoa. So thank you so much. Really great to be on this panel. And Simon, I don't think you should be apologizing for yourself. For me, it's a huge loss that you are not the Chief Science Advisor and hasn't been valued enough for what you've done. And I think there's a lot underneath the comment you just made about science advice in the ministries in general. But before we digress into that, I have to be really careful here. And I've noted my affiliation as being as an honorary professor at the University of Auckland and the Transport Research Centre, partly because actually I mostly work in Health New Zealand, Te Whatuora, but I am not speaking on behalf of them. There's a lot more sign-offs I need to get. So I would love, when I had the chance, Lavinia, when we get to the specifics, to talk about the issue of transport being a major determinant of health, and health being such a hugely impacted issue in many different ways due to our issues with transport inaccessibility for disabled people. But I'll pass over to my lovely friend and colleague, Bridget, to introduce herself, and we can get into the nitty-gritty afterwards. Over to you, Bridget.
Kia ora tātou. Thank you, Shanti. Ko iriha tuku iwi no kirikiri roa aho. I am Bridget, and I am a freelance transport researcher and engineer in Hamilton. And I've just learned in the last week that the word freelance comes from medieval times, and it means the knights pledged allegiance to no king and they could swipe at will. And I love this because I actually am about transparency and speaking our truth. And in that respect, I think it's at least honest that the ministry sacked science, because the policies that are coming out of it are a bit dubious. So I'm about, at the moment, the interaction of equity and planetary challenges, of which climate change is just one. So I hope to speak a little bit about that, but thank you for inviting me to be part of this panel. Great to be here.
Thank you so much. And so that leads us to our first question, which has been asked in the previous panels, but I'm just going to renew everyone's memories. What is one specific action you can take in your role within the transport sector to immediately enhance accessibility and inclusion for people with disabilities? So, Bridget, I know you were the last to introduce yourself, but would you be the first to answer this?
Well, I'm a bit threatened by that word immediate. I sometimes think, because I'm a thinker, and thinking, we tend to look more in the bigger picture and longer term action. Sometimes I wonder whether I should give up thinking and just carry around a bag of asphalt and fix potholes in the footpath and curb cuts and things. That would be far more immediate. But in terms of my job and immediate impact on the professionals that I work with and on the community, to open people's minds, I think, is the immediate challenge to what we can do, and to the fact that the current paradigm isn't the only option. And I think in transport, the best action that I can take is to promote a shift from measuring mobility to measuring sufficiency of access. I think that's the biggest shift in the profession that we could make, because then the question doesn't become how much traffic can we fit in this corridor or between the beehive and the airport in Wellington, to who is getting what they need to thrive and who isn't. And that then becomes a central question where we can prioritize the limited investment resources we have towards lifting people up instead of promoting excess for people who are already privileged. So it's essentially measuring trips not made and valuing equity of access instead of the current valuing of mobility for its own sake.
Nicely answered. And Simon, would you like to go next with answering that question?
I think one of the things the biggest buzzes I actually get out of my job working at university is actually seeing graduates going on and doing really cool jobs. And I hope, and I've seen many of them go into government roles. So there's many go into Waka Kotahi. We've had a number go in there. Some go into the ministry, not as many now, to be honest. Local governments, consultancies. And I think it's making sure that they understand some of these issues, because I don't want to be rude about some people, but I sometimes come across, and I don't want to knock the engineering profession, Bridget, because Bridget's sitting there, but there are some old school engineers who still think it's about building stuff for cars or car drivers. And I think we need to get past that, and we need to actually understand that transport is way more than just roads for cars and parking for cars. And so if we can train, in my case, if I can train my graduates so that they go out and can articulate this and ensure that we plan better communities, then I think I've done my job. And if that's all I do, I'm happy. And I hope I'm doing okay. And it's the part that I think is the thing I can do most effectively day to day.
Fully agree with you. Shanti, would you like to answer that question?
Sure, thank you, Lavinia. So I think I was challenged by the word immediate. I was actually listened to the earlier part, and David Boyd talked about the short half-life of advocacy, which is also something I'm very mindful of. But I'm a pediatrician and a public health physician, so my work in the clinical side of things basically sees all of the impacts, well, not all, but many of the impacts of poor access for disabled people, multiplied many-fold when you think of people multiply disadvantaged by low-income Maori and Pacific communities, people living rurally, to access health care. But also on the other side, actually just even the risks of actually having conditions that make them need access, for example, being more likely to be injured, which is much more likely if you're disabled, both with road injuries, injuries on the pedestrian footpath, wherever, as well as falls and exposure to assault and violence. It's a whole lot of different ways in which our transport system in the wider sense can be hostile and hazardous, and more so for disabled people. So I'm kind of conscious of the role I can play here because I'm not in the transport sector. I'm not a transport engineer, planner, or designer. But it was amazing for me to work with Bridget and a group of other people, actually informed by wonderful people like Vivian and others on this call, on a project called Inclusive Streets, where we really heard from particularly Maori and Pacific communities in Auckland and others about not just the hazards and how limiting those were, but also even in the context of underserved low-income communities, if there are opportunities for good access, how it lifts their opportunities for social engagement, despite chronic health conditions, despite various impairments. So these are not unremediable things. These are preventable and also potentially rectifiable, although thinking of things at the design end may be the most useful thing to start with. So my role in terms of what I can do here, I feel, is as a, for the want of a better word, and forgive the pun, be a bridge builder between our two sectors, health and transport. But they are not the only sectors that are relevant here. I think we really, what I'd love to see, just, picking up Bridget's point about, we are not measuring the trips not made. We know only mostly when people do get to a clinic or use a public transport service and get a survey on how that service was. I think it'd be really good to think of things like, there's a concept called health in all policies. So if we could actually have a principle of accessibility in all policies as something we have to speak to and respond to. And that might be possible despite the trauma of a health reset, health restructure that is ongoing and extremely debilitating for some people working in the sector. These may be opportunities for us to raise voices and bring disability front of mind rather than the nice to have when we have enough resources so that we don't leave people behind. So I think my sense is being a bridge builder between two communities that includes the health sector that is sometimes way behind the 8 ball in picking up the issues that we need to do here. I know that Lee and others have been working in this sector, engaging with us. Vivian, just love to tautoko everything you do.
Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, sorry. I was just taking in what everyone was saying. I'm so sorry. I was just thinking over that. We had 2 comments on the Q&A. Juliana, do I read that out?
Yes, please. You can read the questions that the audience.
Okay, so there was 2 comments. One was from Anonymous, which is looking forward to launching in Wellington. Our cycleway network is improving, perhaps involve people first in any training. Then there's another comment said, at least a higher fee could be part of the messaging to offenders on why they need to watch out for accessibility signs. Maybe you should ask Adam for an introduction to Simeon Brown to get the new law changed for that too. And then intercity bus only let the information to stop for toilet or cafe for 10 to 20 minutes break, but train how many minutes each in all transportation service on their own different system. And then there has been a question that just popped through. Is there going to be action towards equity of accessible transportations in terms of flexibility and operating hours? Like, for example, a disabled person goes on a trip of fancy to a fast food drive-through at 11 p.m. in a taxi. Would anyone like to answer that?
I can answer that. So there is a review of the total mobility scheme going on with the Ministry of Transport at the moment, and I'm not sure exactly where it is at, but one of the bits of feedback that we've had through a few different pieces of work asking people about, for example, accessible taxi services, is that they don't operate long enough hours. the commercial models that support them mean that they tend to be really limited and difficult to book and inflexible. So certainly that review ought to be addressing those kinds of things. It reminds me of an action that we took during COVID lockdown, because the decree was not to travel very far, right? And you can only travel if you're going to an essential service. And so we advocated and were successful with the Ministry of Transport and Waka Kotahi to expand the guidance to say that people who couldn't easily go for a walk in their neighbourhood community could use car travel as a means of recreation. So instead of going for a walk around the block, they were allowed to just go for a drive. And if they were stopped in that time, you know, park at the beach or something, then that was valid, that their recreation wasn't available in a lockdown loop like many of us did walking around our home community. So there are ways that we can change these things. It's just that the change seems frustratingly slow a lot of the time.
Can I add a comment on that, Bridget? That I think one of the things you touched on is actually we should make all our communities safe for people to walk around. And I know that's not what you were specifically commenting on, but I think sometimes, you know, I think for people with accessibility issues, we need to create all transport options for them. So total mobility scheme is absolutely essential, but actually for many people, even then, it's still quite expensive. And we need to make it so all buses are accessible. But the other one that we often forget, and I think sometimes is almost used the other way, is actually cycle infrastructure. So sometimes cycle infrastructure is not because it takes away parking spaces, and we should absolutely make sure there are enough disabled parking spaces at the right location. So they have to be close to the places people want to go. But we should also advocate for cycleways that can fit mobility scooters on and can fit bigger bikes that perhaps disabled people might be using, and acknowledge that other modes of transport, we need to make all modes of transport, because not everyone can drive and use, and not everyone wants to have to access a car. And sometimes that's kind of the default position. It is, you know, the total mobility scheme, you get a taxi, but actually we should make it safe to walk. We should have good pavements. We should have, going back to the comment earlier about scooters, we should have good scooter parking in the right places so that people don't leave them on the pavements. We should have wide cycleways so that mobility scooters and bigger bikes can go on them. And I think sometimes we forget that we should be providing choices for all people, not just choices for able-bodied people, but choices for everybody so they can choose the mode of transport they want.
I'd just like to pick up on that, Simon, just taking it. I despair of the situation we often find where, because there's a lot of groups on the margins of the motorists who have got the right of way in the center of the road and the biggest landscape of the road, it almost sets up very invidious arguments and fighting between marginalized groups, whether it's children, older people, disabled people, micromobility users, you name it. And it's almost like we're all fighting at the edges amongst each. I'm not saying this is part and parcel of the way we all behave, but what's out of sight here is who has the main right of way. And so I really commend your work and with all of us trying to advocate sort of against the traffic speed rules that are coming into force and the impact this will have on all those groups, and particularly including disabled people. So yeah, we probably have to be really mindful of that risk and potentially have more solidarity with groups that can argue for a design that is more enabling of active travel, the ways we're talking about here.
There was another question that came through. There was lots of critique of total mobility. This review has taken forever and doesn't look promising. Do you thinkers have any ideas of a solution?
Yeah, wait 2 years and vote a new government in. Honestly, there's a lot of talk in the transport sector at the moment about funding constraints and things going on pause or hold, and people have been saying, oh, there's a lot of funding uncertainty at the moment, whereas I say there's not actually much uncertainty, there's just not much money in transport, mostly because most of the billions of dollars in the transport fund are going into expanding roads that are already there. So in my submission on the government policy statement on land transport, I advocated for including inclusive access as a policy objective because it used to be in and now it's out. And so while there's no objective in the highest levels of policy for inclusion, why would the government spend a lot of effort? They don't have science anymore. So honestly, I would participate in the democratic processes that are going on with regards to total mobility, even if they're taking a while. But we need to activate as citizens to advocate for change and to make our voices heard, and also to connect with the, hundreds of good transport professionals who are out there working, because they're still trying to do good work despite the current policy environment.
Yeah, can I just add, there's tons of money in transport. It's just where we're putting now 90% of it. So there's no shortage of funding to support these initiatives. It's just the current government isn't choosing to.
The question often one has been, the rhetoric is about let's get New Zealand moving. My question is at whose cost? Who's going to be left behind? And I think that's the kind of equity issue that we seem to be losing sight of. I'm also quite concerned that sometimes we do rely on complaints too much to basically rectify what are clearly difficulties, because that project that Bridget and I and a group of others worked with, Inclusive Streets, the least likely to complain were the Māori and Pacific communities we were engaging with, who had the greatest issues. They were not, and I'm generalizing here, but they were least likely to shoot off complaints, use the internet, be at even webinars like this, certainly turn up for the consultation meetings. We went through quite a intentional process to engage with those amazing communities and heard about their enthusiasm to be part of the design issues. They can, and they are enthusiastic. It has to be done differently in a way that truly enables and engages people from different communities, speak different languages, and basically interact with each other in quite different ways. So we know this. New Zealand's a small place. Everybody knows each other. At least we hope we can reach out and ensure that that inclusive voice is not forgotten. It needs an intentional focus to do that.
Do I have time to ask one more question?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. This is a question to Shanti from Connor. Talofonia, my question is to Shanti, and what has been the best part of your role since you started?
Best part of my role, I'm not quite sure which. I'm a bit of a chameleon. Sorry, I missed the person who name of the person who asked this question. Is it Connor?
Yes.
Connor. I tend to wear different hats and work in different places. Being a migrant, I'm originally from Sri Lanka and grew up in Porirua. I actually celebrate that opportunity that I've had. The best part, if you like, is that I can wear different hats and try and learn different languages, because I've had to do that to be in New Zealand. And one of in fact, the most valuable things was through Bridget being introduced to the transport sector and listening and hearing transport professionals speaking about in that language, their issues, I think, have changed over time. Like people like Bridget basically bringing equity into the consideration, but also even in the project I talked about, it is not that people in the transport sector are unaware of these issues, but probably, as Simon would know from his work in the ministry, it's where they sit, as is just implied in terms of priority. And I think my sense is that belittling of these needs in that context means I've got a lot of work to do, and I still feel I'm learning. So Connor, I'm on a journey, and for me, it is truly amazing to me to have people like yourself and others engaged, but I think it's how do we amplify those voices in a way that means everyone's heard and seen and nobody's left behind. I hope that answered your question in some way.
I'm just going to squeeze this speech. I'm going to be cheeky and sneak one last question to Simon. I'm a chair of a committee of young people with disabilities committee, right? I'm a chair of them, and I would like to ask you, since you have like a background of being a professor, what is your bit of advice for our young people with disabilities?
My bit of advice actually is to young people in general, and that's please speak out. because too many times when submissions are made and when people grumble to government, it's people my age and my gender and my color. And we need people who are not white men to be getting grumpy and let people know what they think. So, I mean, we've done a thing at university recently where we have a class of 1,000 students for every single science student. And this year we made them write a submission on a public document as an assignment. And we strongly encourage them to submit it because we need young voices, disabled voices, Māori and Pacifica to speak out. And I think Shanti said this, Māori and Pacifica don't speak as much on these debates. So please, please, please let people know what you're thinking. Let your voices be heard, because otherwise government thinks they're getting approval. We've seen this with the Minister of Transport on his speed rules, where he says people are telling me they agree with me. I don't think they're agreeing with him. And I think it's partly that a lot of people who don't agree with it. And there was a comment here about how do we, the disabled community, these speed limit increases are bad. The minister's not hearing that message enough, and he needs to hear it more. And he particularly needs to hear it from young people and people like yourselves. So please encourage people to speak out, because otherwise the government doesn't hear. Or maybe they don't want to hear, but we need to keep. So please speak out. And thank you for what you're doing, but do it more.
Thank you, because I know that a lot of my young people have joined in the audience, and so they would like a bit of advice. So that was a good ending to it. Chrissy, over to you.
Sorry, Nia, I think we still have time for a more
Oh yeah, we
couple of
do.
questions. Yeah.
Okay then. Quite popular. So the answers. Tēnā koe, my name is Matakorama, and my question is, do you think the recent government changes will be more challenging for the disability community in terms of transport?
Well, yes, I think they will be for several reasons, like what the discussion has just been that Simon said about raising speed limits is not good for anybody, but even worse for people who have the fewest choices about how to get around. The removal of inclusive access as an objective is a backward step as well. There's a lot that is not useful, but as has been said, this just makes it more important for us to join together as a professional community to cross those boundaries, like Shanti said, between transport, health, advocacy groups. When there's projects going on in your community, when there are issues being debated at a local level as well, speak up and voice your support for good decisions as much as calling out ones that you don't think are so good. So yeah, this government presents a lot of challenges for this area, but it's just an incentive to keep the faith and to join up as community, I think, is where our strength is.
Nice. And
Can
then
I add a little one to that? The speed limit stuff, I know the minister's made his decision, but this decision, there's still time to do stuff. And somebody posted earlier, and I accidentally dismissed the comment, and I have added to it. Please, Access Matters or disability communities, let the minister know you don't like it. Because as Bridget said, and Shanti said, this policy is a really bad policy for everybody, but it's particularly bad for people who need more time to cross streets, right? And you're getting less time, and it's not over. This debate is not over. There's going to be more things happening to try and persuade the minister to change his mind. So it's not too late. Write an open letter, put a public submission in, lobby the minister, go along to your local council and tell them it's not too late to do these things, because you're absolutely right, Bridget, and you, Shanti, that what's happening at the moment is not good for lots of people. It's a bit like, if we make a city good for people with disabilities, if we make it good for kids, if we make it good for people who are 80 and 8, we make it good for everybody. So when you speak, you're actually speaking not just for that community, but you're actually speaking for everybody. So please it's not too late to change stuff.
So do I have time to read another question, or do I pass it on to Chrissy?
Yeah, no, that's good. Last one. What will be your future vision for an accessible Aotearoa? If all the panelists can just quick fire a response before handing over to our MC.
Well, I might go first just to say, the future is one actually which is inclusive and respectful and provides dignity and opportunity for everybody. And that, just picking up on Simon's last point, if we make our environments and transport systems inclusive, safe, and accessible for disabled people, it is going to meet all of those objectives.
Simon, would you like to go next?
I think Shanti summed it up. It's acknowledging that people want choices. They don't just want to use a total mobility scheme. That is an important part of it, but they actually want to be able to travel on choices at times when they want, on modes that they want to choose. And if we get it right, we get it right for everybody.
I tautoko that, and I will go back to the great Jerry Pomeroy, who came up with a vision for accessible transport over 10 years ago, which was, we know we're successful when the transport system demonstrates inclusion. So it's not enough to have theoretical accessible standards and goals. We need to demonstrate that people are participating and living their best lives, and transport is part of enabling that.
Nice. And now, officially over to you, Chrissy.
Chrissy, you're muted.
No, there we go. Ngā mihi nia and the Thinkers panel members. Okay, we're now in the final stage of our webinar. And before I go into some closing comments, I just want to acknowledge receipt of a statement that we received from Te Manatu Waka, the Ministry of Transport, who had sent their apologies because they were unable to attend today's webinar. I'll just give you a very brief abridged version of what the statement reads, but and the full statement will be available on the Access Matters Aotearoa website for everyone to access. So very briefly, they recognised the really important role that transport plays in enabling people to live their lives, connect them to work, other people, and social services like medical appointments. They confirm that their key focus at this time in the transport accessibility and transport space is the review of the total mobility scheme, which there has been much discussion and thoughts sharing about today. They then go on to talk about what total mobility is and how they're going to review the scheme, including the 4 key parts of the terms of reference. So in the areas are 1, purpose of the total mobility scheme, 2, how aspects of total mobility could be made more accessible for disabled people, 3, how aspects of total mobility operations could be improved, and 4, funding mechanisms for the total mobility scheme. They also include in their statement the link to their website about more information. Like I say, our team will post the Ministry of Transport statement onto our website, and on behalf of the Access Matters Aotearoa Trust, we acknowledge the Ministry of Transport providing that statement. Okay. What can I say except about today's webinar on transport? In a nutshell, all I can really say is ka mau te wehi, outstanding, outstanding the kōrero, outstanding the participation and contribution. Ngā mihi kia koutou to the attendees for joining us today, asking your questions and sharing your stories. Thank you again to our guest speakers, the doers, deciders, creators, thinkers, panel members, and mediators. The richness of your kōrero, your passion, and contribution to making Aotearoa accessible for all New Zealanders is greatly appreciated. To the Kōrero for Change team, tau ke te mahi, awesome work. the NZSL interpreters and Mercury transcripts, ngā mihi ki a koutou. Lastly, I'd like to acknowledge the contribution of the J.R. Mackenzie Trust and Whaikaha Ministry of Disabled People in supporting the Access Matters Aotearoa Kōrero for Change webinar series. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa, kia inoi tātou. Kia tātou katoa te atawhai o te tātou ariki a ihu karaite, me te aroha o te atua, me te whiwhinga tahitanga ki te wairua tapu ake, amine. May the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with you all forever and ever. Amen. Ngā mihi ki a koutou. Mā te wā.